Superman kicks off the brand new DCU led by James Gunn. With Warner's past failures and stiff competition, this new film carries much weight on its shoulders. So can an upbeat, less cynical version of the Man of Steel form the foundation of a new cinematic universe? Let's find out. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
Hey buddy, eyes up here.
This is a movie podcast, and we are working through Superman season. This is the finale of Superman season. It is the brand new James Gunn directed movie that's kicking off the new DCU that's going to be lasting for potentially years. This is the start of part 1, Gods and Monsters. I forgot they gave it that name until the text at the start of the movie reminded me that they called this phase a thing. It's got a title. Obviously, we will start spoiler free because it is a new movie. I mean, we do it for all movies anyway, but this is a particularly new movie. So we'll start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And of course, if you are enjoying the show, please do hit the like button. It helps out a bunch if you do that on YouTube. And you can, of course, support us and get bonus content, bonus shows via YouTube membership or Patreon. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So you're probably wondering, why the hell is this so late? I seem to recall in the Superman Returns review, we'll be back on Tuesday with Superman. I got sick. I got really sick. I wasn't sitting up straight for over a week. So I'm finally better. We both went to see the movie again because we'd both seen it initially to record when we were going to record it in the first place, and we have both seen it a second time now. We're finally here to talk about Superman. It's been lingering, like, I was feeling sick and I was feeling terrible and I couldn't sit up straight. I had a fever, no energy, and there was this guilt in my head. I've still not talked about Superman. I have to talk about Superman.
Pete, I can't tell you how many regular people I follow on YouTube that have put out their thoughts about Superman, and I'm like, oh, I want to see what they have to say, but I don't want to be tainted. I want to go into this with my own opinions. And so I have an entire back. I probably got a good 4 hours of other people's opinions I got to listen to as soon as we're done here.
We'll get into it. So, David, you've been waiting almost 2 full weeks to answer this question, but what did you think of Superman?
Yeah, it's all right. No, I have strong opinions. I have very strong opinions on this one. And to be clear, to be upfront, they are positive. I enjoy this movie. I really, honest to God, enjoy this movie. I think I'm trying to think back specifically to my thoughts after the first time watching it, because the second time I went in with more of an analytic eye. I was trying to pick up on things that I could really specifically pick out and talk to here. But the first time was just, like you said, that idea of you're kind of just sitting there with your fingers crossed of please be good. Please be good. I want this. Please allow me to enjoy this. And I think the thing that to put the little negative first, the tiny little is that I think that the third act fight is a little bit weak in some aspects. Other aspects work, but in some aspects it's a little weak. And I think that if you are sick of the James Gunn isms from the MCU and the Guardians franchise, you may dislike a lot of the humor in this movie because it is still kind of up that same alley. So those are my negatives. But the thing that I will always push this movie for is that coming out of this movie, I felt a genuine hopefulness and optimism, not just for the idea that the DC universe finally has a good direction and a place that it can leap off of and actually do something interesting and good with it, but just kind of the world as a whole. It's hard to really the Superman's optimism and his inability to be put down in this movie, his stubbornness and always doing the right thing, just felt good. It felt good to have that in this world that just sucks all the time in every way. I enjoyed coming out of that and thinking, you know, sometimes it is just good to have good things happen. So it's all right. It's okay, I guess, is what I'm saying here.
So I think one of the weird benefits this movie had as I went into it is having just recently watched Superman Returns did nothing but make this feel full of life and energy, because Superman Returns is so devoid of personality. It's so devoid of a pulse. It's such a bland movie. And this movie is so comic booky. And I mean that in a positive way. It's so refreshingly comic booky, where this world just already exists, and it's not afraid to do things that feel like a cartoon in terms of just stuff that's happening in the background or the world that's been established. And then you, at the core, have a Superman who actually feels like, oh, we tried to make him Superman. We tried to make him have the sense of right and wrong, and the attitude, like everything that you like long-time Superman fans think about when they're thinking about what makes the character the character. That was there throughout, and I think something as simple as the opening of this movie starts with some text, which is just setting up what the world is. That's all it is. It's just basically saying some pre-text to like what the universe is at, like where we are at in this universe, how long Superman's been active, that kind of thing. And the first line when it comes up says 3,000 years ago the metahumans like started existing on Earth, and I'm just like, in one sentence this feels more focused and has more direction than that entire last attempt at a universe, because that feels like they've thought about it. They've thought about what this universe is, how it functions, and then just from there it starts in media res. This like Superman's already like halfway through a story basically, and it never flashes back. It never goes back and kind of fills things in. You pick it up as you go. And I think that maybe if there is a critique for some people, I don't think it really bothered me, especially not in the second viewing, but this movie's got no interest in like overly holding your hand. It's got no interest in explaining in great detail who the hell Metamorpho is. It gives you just enough to understand what's happening. Comic nerds will get it more so. Regular folk will maybe get enough to understand and enjoy it, and maybe they'll get interested in like do some Googling later or whatever. But it's not interested in being super slow and dumbed down, because we have to slowly introduce everything. I think one of the biggest strengths this movie has is that it's got in with this attitude of, we're not showing someone their first ever superhero movie. This world is established, it's full of characters, and everything, like I think one of the concerns from the trailers and like knowing how many characters were going to be in it is, is it going to feel overstuffed? Is it going to feel like there's too much going on? And Gunn just balances it, and everyone feels like they've got a purpose. It makes sense in the context of the story, where it's very clearly Superman is the main character. It is his story. And then secondarily, Lois Lane's up next. Lex is clearly the main villain. But all of the other characters that are there serve a function, either as a team or as an individual, and they play into the overall thing that's going on. And, you know, they're fun and they're likable for the most part, and they're memorable and all the things you want out of your side characters. You know, I left wanting to see more of just about everyone, which is about as nice as a compliment as I can give to a movie with an ensemble cast of characters like this. But at its core, it has some things that it's actually trying to do, things that it wants to say. Like, this is a Superman movie that's not afraid to maybe touch on some very real world things that are going on. And the real world is so screwed up that there's actually multiple things it could be referring to. Right. And I think it's more of this, but it could also represent this. And I was thinking that as I was watching it, and, you know, so, I mean, on you go.
No, yeah, but even when you're saying like those real world things, like, yes, it feels topical to a sense, but it does, as you said, feel comic booky. It does feel like, okay, this is something where it isn't our world. It isn't something where you can look outside the window and you expect to see this happen. And that's always been, for people in the comics universe, the difference between Marvel and DC. The description of Marvel has always been the world outside your window, whereas DC is more of this other place. It's this other world that looks a lot like our world, but it's just ever so slightly different. And that's kind of the vibe I really like about this, is while you can say, oh, maybe this is a parallel to this, or oh, maybe this is going on with that, it's still evergreen. It's still something where it's vague enough and general enough where it's not going to be something where when you look back at this, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're not going to be able to point to something and say, like, boy, somebody was really paying attention to the Russian news that day. Like, it's not something locked into an era.
No, but I think it is important that it's trying to actually speak about things. It's trying to actually take stuff that's going on and saying, hey, here's why we kind of need Superman more than we ever have right now. And that just adds a lot of weight behind what the character represents and why you're rooting for him and him struggling with these decisions. My favorite version typically of Lex is the jealous Lex who is very xenophobic. And this Lex is a bigot when it comes to Superman. And I think that is the right choice. For the most part, it's a sort of thing where these characters are so complex, and I've seen so many versions of these characters, I've read so many versions of these characters, that it's almost impossible that there'll ever be one that's perfect from top to bottom, and every single possible preference I would have for them. But all these characters are mostly hitting the nail on the head, and it always feels like they're in service of the larger thing that the movie's trying to do or say. It always feels like even if they make a choice that's a little bit different to what I'm used to from the comics or other movies or whatever, it always feels like, yeah, but I can see why they made that choice, because it feeds into this theme, or it feeds into what they're doing here with the story. And I was constantly, I think in the first viewing, I'm in a weird way, I'm glad we ended up seeing this twice, because on the first viewing there's a lot to take in. But I think I really like that, because one of the things that really stuck out to me about some other superhero movies, not all of them of course, but there's definitely some that are really tough to go back to now that we're used to having in lots of superhero movies, where the origins feel really drawn out, or they feel kind of like, oh, we're going through the motions to get to this obvious plot beat and that obvious plot beat. And I think I love how full of life this feels, how its structure feels pretty unique. Like I say, we start in media res and we're already at things. And I think when we cut to Metropolis for the first time and there's a villain there, right near the start of the movie, the villain's called the Hammer of Bavaria, I believe was the title. And as soon as you see this outfit this villain is wearing, I went, this is comic booky as shit, and I am here for it. He looks he looks kind of stupid in the best way possible, and I'm here for the embracing of that, and I think it makes so many things work. I mean, the fact that you have Superman just casually referencing, oh, I wanted to take this to an intergalactic zoo. I'm like, there's intergalactic zoos, right? Like, there's other planets that we know about. Like, Superman might have been to some of them already. We don't know for sure, but he might have been.
Yeah. No, I think, I can't remember the last time it was really done. I think... I mean, to an extent, the last time I really remember being done was Spider-Man Homecoming, where they just said, you know the origin. We don't have to go back. We don't need to go back and tell you, here's Spider-Man, here's how he got bit and whatnot like that. I hesitate to say that in DC, the last time it really happened was Batman v Superman, because like on one hand, we didn't get the Batman origin, but on the other hand, I remember Pearls, so... It did at the same time, but yeah, no, it's something that I appreciate, the fact that this, I wonder how much of this version kind of really could have happened without the DCEU being before it, without this idea of we can trust that an audience knows about Krypton and knows about Superman going into this.
I mean, that's kind of, I mean, not so much that particular detail you just mentioned, like a plot detail, but that's kind of what people said at the time as well when Batman Begins came out. Is like, yeah, but would we have gotten Nolan's Batman trilogy if Batman and Robin hadn't tanked the entire, like, name of the character? You know, would they have taken a chance on this young upcoming director and so on? And likewise here, would we have been in a position where they were willing to give someone this creative control to shape a universe and do this focus thing if they hadn't tried and failed so miserably, to the point where... And if anyone wants to debate that it failed, just look at like how much money Aquaman 1 made versus Aquaman 2. Shazam 1 versus Shazam 2. Like, everything was, like, nosediving and bombing in the last, like, 5 or so years.
I'm pretty sure everything that came out after Flash, maybe even including Flash, definitely including Flash, were bombs. Like, they did not make their money back.
Flash was actually quite late, though. I think it started before that as well.
No, but I'm sure it did. But like the ones that really wrapped up the series were Aquaman 2, Blue Beetle, and there was one other one that I can't quite remember right now. Black Adam, yeah. Those ones just didn't make it back. The
hierarchy of the DC universe did indeed change. James Gunn got hired. Thanks, Rock.
Yep.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot we're going to get into in spoilers. So much we're going to dissect because we're DC nerds. So, and you know, it is worth mentioning, we're coming to this from that perspective. We're coming to this as fans of the characters and wanting a good Superman movie. We can't offer the opinion of someone who doesn't know much about Superman. I've definitely seen good opinions floating around. I've seen people say, "Oh, I don't usually like Superman, but this was pretty good." Like, you know, it's maybe introducing people to the idea of what Superman's supposed to be. Keeping in mind, Man of Steel was 12 years ago, and for maybe an entire generation, that's just what they thought Superman was this mopey asshole.
Sad Jesus, yeah.
Like, I keep seeing the gif of in Batman v Superman, like after the courthouse blows up and he's just standing there in a wall of flames just looking miserable.
No, my favorite gif is the one when all the people are like reaching out to touch him and he just looks up to like the sky and like, God, this sucks, I hate this.
Oh, actually, just one more weird Batman v Superman reference is that I just read, like, today, there's a very quick snippet in this movie where Superman saves a squirrel, and James Gunn almost cut it out because the test screenings they did, the audiences didn't like that he took time to save a squirrel, so he had a cut where he took it out, and then he said, "No, this is bullshit. that moment should be there." And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because as soon as this news broke, someone on the internet made a Photoshopped GIF of, you know, in Man of Steel when Pa Kent holds up his hand with a tornado behind it? It's that, but it's a big squirrel holding up his hand. It made me laugh so much.
I don't know why, but my mind immediately went to the neck snap scene, and it's just a squirrel instead getting his neck snapped. That's what Snyder would have done.
Oh dear. So I mean, yeah, to run down the characters in here and like sort of talk about how they work and whatnot. Superman, David Corenswet, if I'm saying his name correctly. I feel like I've never quite been sure.
I keep on saying sweat at the end, which seems wrong. I feel like the S is supposed to go earlier, but I don't know. It's like Corenswet. I don't know.
No, that definitely is. It's definitely closer to what I said. But I don't know if I'm particularly like all the way there either.
We'll get it.
Yeah, but he's very good. He does the whole embodying the you know, like oh golly, oh, you know, gosh,
the earnestness, the geekiness of it all.
Yes, very very earnest, very. You know, there's not a lot of Clark Kent in this movie in terms of the Daily Planet disguise Clark Kent.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of
bumbling. He's in places where, you know, he's not dressed as Superman, but he's comfortable enough to just be himself, not the disguise of Clark.
So it's not something this movie super focuses on. But I do think he has lots of good little moments. I appreciate that he feels a bit more natural than perhaps like a super over-the-top performance of Superman, but that earnestness is always there. It's always kind of baked in there. It's just kind of in there in, dare I say, a slightly more realistic way where, you know, he's still a person who lives in 2025. You know, he's not, you know, some time capsule from the 40s or whatever it would be.
No, I mean, the whole movie reinforces what character he is, and without spoiling anything, there is a scene very early on that is an interview between Lois and Superman, and I think that scene tells you more. It's telling, not showing, but it tells you more about who this Superman is and what his beliefs are than anything in the first 3 appearances of Superman in the Snyderverse, like, at all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, on that subject, Jimmy Olsen makes it out of a scene alive, so by default, this Jimmy Olsen's superior.
I was a little bit worried. I was confused as to why this Jimmy wasn't a CIA agent, because clearly that's the norm that we have to establish.
Perfect casting on the Jimmy, by the way. He's like that guy's face was made to be Jimmy Olsen, and I don't know what else to say about it.
I first saw him in, I believe it was called Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh, sure, I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, and he's the same character. He's playing the exact same role. He's just this upbeat, like, quirky guy, and I'm like, yeah, no. As soon as I heard the announcement for him, I thought of that role, and I'm like, he fits. He's going to be good.
Yeah, I saw him in Righteous Gemstones. I think is where I saw him. But yeah, he's kind of perfect as Jimmy. Yeah, real no complaints there. Obviously, there's some fun stuff with Jimmy in this movie. They play around a little bit with it's so much so that they're already talking about doing a TV show spin-off of Jimmy Olsen, because hey,
I'm down.
Yeah, people in this movie are that popular that everyone's getting a TV show now, apparently. Yeah. Rachel Brosnahan is Lois Lane. Tell you what, the last woman I saw as Lois Lane was Kate Bosworth, so Brosnahan was coming in with the lowest bar in the world to be compared to. Yep.
And I mean, she, to be clear, I think she easily.
Oh, she's great. Yeah,
there.
no,
like,
yeah. I have like no complaints about her. She again, there's this kind of like natural balance to it where like she's got a bit of that Lois Lane feistiness, but it's not like super over the top either. Again, she feels kind of like a very real person in 2025, but you know, very different to Clark, very different to Superman.
Yeah. And I do like how this movie did manage to make it so she isn't just Superman / Clark's love interest. She is a character. She does things.
Yeah, she does things. She's proactive, which is a big part of Lois Lane, but also she's not just there to be a damsel. In fact, I don't think at any point in this entire movie is she a damsel that needs to be saved. And I bring that up because I was thinking the other day about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, and I know people like those movies, but I do think it's really annoying that every third act in all three of those movies, every single one, Mary Jane gets kidnapped by the villain and is like, you know, dangling in like, hey, Spider-Man, come get your girlfriend. Like, and like every single one has that in the third act. And I appreciate that this Lois Lane is not that Lois Lane, I mean, she can be saved sometimes. She absolutely can be. And usually because she gets herself out of trouble because she's too gun-ho about getting to the story or whatever. But I really like that here. It was like, no, she's got a goal. She's got a mission. She's obviously tied to Superman, but she's also doing other things that are important for the plot that are separate from Superman. And that's, I think that's cool.
Yeah, my only, acting-wise, I don't really have any complaints. I think she's solid. My only writing thing, and this comes from the comics, is they didn't outright say it's not her backstory, but it's kind of implied she's no longer a military brat, because she's talking about how like punk rock she was back in the day. It can still be possible. I kind of like the military brat idea of Lois.
I think it's still possible. I could see her being punk rock as a teenager to like rebel against her military father. I mean, who knows if we'll ever even do her father like in this universe? You know, we may never meet Sam Lane. It may not matter.
I do want to point out the only thing that people might get on us. This is the start, as James Gunn has come out and said, this is the start of the DC universe. This is the beginning of part 1. But there is the existence of Creature Commandos, currently on Max, which the only point of carryover that I got, having not completely finished Creature Commandos, is Sergeant Rick Flag is played by the same actor in both of those. He is very clearly implied to be the same person. And technically that is set before this in terms of timeline stuff.
Yeah, I think he had realistic expectations, though, of how much of the audience was going to watch Creature Commandos, so I suspect nothing super important is
not
in
really.
there.
Nah.
Would be my... Because I've not even watched... I'm a DC fan, and I haven't even bothered trying to watch it, so...
Yeah.
Here we are. So, I mean, yeah, as far as... Obviously, we got Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult.
As you already said it, he's managed to shake that sort of... oh, I'm just kind of a maniacal businessman sort of thing, and he leans fully into this harshly xenophobic character that is like the business is a side effect of just trying to get at Superman.
Yeah. But he does publicly have a fine reputation at the start of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, like he's a respectable billionaire, for, you know, lack of a better term. Yeah, no, I obviously, again, like the comparisons to previous versions are very flattering on this version of Lex, because the last one was that horrible Jesse Eisenberg thing, whatever they were doing with that. And then the person before that wasn't terrible, but it was Kevin Spacey. So that brings its own bag of worms that, you know, you have to contend with.
Honestly, I feel like that is kind of what you were saying of how this does a bunch of analyzing with stuff that is going on in the real world.
Yes.
I think that's kind of one of the bigger missteps with Lex of being Jesse Eisenberg, was that the real world at that point was going through the tech bros. All the tech bros were going to be the next billionaires and leaders, whatever. And like, yes, that's fine. It makes sense and that fits for the time, but it doesn't feel as timeless as this version of Lex does, where it's just this vague, super genius smart guy. He's not specifically tech bro. He's just really good at what he does.
Yeah, they never really specify in this movie what Luthor Corp actually does, but that's okay, because that's usually pretty vague, to be fair. But
it's implied, like, to some extent, defense contracts, but
yes,
vague.
Yeah, they definitely supply military weapons to someone, so I guess I guess that's part of it. But I assume it's probably tech in general, not just weapons.
Right.
I assume there's a bit of everything there. So as far as other characters go, obviously we got Aman Ken. We have there's a couple of surprising names voicing the robots. I mean, I knew that Alan Tudyk was voicing one of the Fortress robots. I did not know that Michael Rooker and Plum Clementine were voicing robots. So fair enough.
I couldn't even pick them out if you told. They have the numbers, so I'm sure I could see them, but voice wise, I couldn't have picked them out.
That's just Gunn working with his buddies, because Sean Gunn gets a cameo towards the end of the movie in a little role, which could become an important role potentially at some point.
I can see it. Yeah.
We have an Eve Tessmacher.
Man, the moment I heard Eve Tessmacher, I'm like, are you kidding me? We're going back to this well? Because that, for anyone who doesn't know, is almost specifically a movie thing. That is not a comic thing at all.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely appeared in the comics, but yeah, she comes from the movie. Like, the movie's what started that legacy, if you will. Yeah, so, and obviously the group that I've kind of avoided till now is the other heroes that are in the movie. We have Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, who's the worst
breakout character, the best there is.
Now, Guy Gardner is the worst Green Lantern. I maintain that, but I do really like Nathan Fillion. So, I like this version of Guy Gardner.
Put it in the history books, people. He says, and I quote, I like ... Guy Gardner.
Yeah. We have Hawk Girl, of course. We have Mr. Terrific. I know a lot of people have been saying Mr. Terrific's been kind of a breakout in this movie. A lot of people like Mr. Terrific who didn't know him before. So
he's the other one with a TV series possibly on the horizon.
Possibly, yes. Technically, Guy's already kind of got one incoming with Lanterns. He's not one of the leads in that, but he's going to appear in it, so presumably he'll be recurring in some form. So yeah, we got our little team there. I don't want to talk too much about them in spoiler free, but they're all likable. They all get some stuff to do, some more than others. Like Terrific definitely gets the most for sure. There's no denying that. Hawk Girl probably gets the least, but even her one or two little moments that she does get are pretty memorable. So makes the most of it, and they all kind of leave you wanting to see more of them, which is nice.
That's really kind of the short of it, is like, yes, you have your A tier characters and B tier characters. I'd say B tier includes the Justice Gang and Jimmy Olsen and such, but every single one of those characters, I think I don't have really a bad thing to say about them. I want these characters to continue onwards. It's not one of those things where I'm trying to think of an exact example in the DCEU, but like there are a dime a dozen in the Marvelverse where it's this character who is put into this movie and just this movie, and they feel like they're put there specifically for plot development, not because they're an interesting character in their own right. That's not what these characters are. These characters are actual honest-to-God characters, and they feel like they, like you said, are fleshed out with the rest of this universe. Like there was some thought put into them.
It's so fascinating watching how James Gunn does this, because obviously he did the Guardians movies, that was part of the MCU, but he didn't start the MCU. And I always remember in the commentary for the first Guardians, when it gets to the scene in that movie where Thanos is there, where he basically says in the commentary track, oh, I mean, this scene's kind of bad for pacing, and like I wouldn't have put it in, but we're also building this universe up to, like, you know, their big Avengers movie, so I had to put it in. And it wasn't like, you know, whining or anything, but there was just enough there to get that if he was making this movie in a vacuum, he would not have put this scene here. It's only here because it's part of the MCU. And I think it's interesting that here he gets to come in and be the architect. He gets to come in and like think about it all in advance and think about like how it all fits together, what the overall idea of the whole thing is, and like you know like how much more he loves the idea of the world building when he's actually the one doing it all from the start. So
yeah, let me be absolutely clear. The first time a news story breaks in relation to this universe where it says David Zaslav has done this, I'm rebelling. I am immediately like, I'm done. I am not accepting any of that to happen.
Yeah. Obviously, at the end of the review, we'll talk a bit about where we hope things will go, and, you know, maybe some future projects that are coming up, but that's better served for the ending of this rather than before we even get to the spoilers. As far as other spoiler-free stuff goes, the music's a big thing that I want to bring up. 'Cause
so good.
we were using John Williams' theme, but we're doing different things with it. There was a little bit of I don't want to say controversy, but there's a little bit of like a hubbub about who did most of the score.
I haven't heard about this.
Because there's two composers listed. I think it's David Fleming's the one who was brought in later and reworked a lot of it. So there's a little bit of a like who actually did most of the good stuff kind of thing. But regardless of any of like how we got there, like this movie starts right. So you get like a golden age Superman that turns into the DC Studios logo. There's no Warner Brothers logo at the start of this, which is wild. They're literally like completely branding this as DC Studios, which is very Marvel. That's what the Marvel movies have been doing for a long time. They don't have like a Disney logo or before anything. I think if you go all the way back to like Iron Man 1, you get like a Paramount logo first, but they stopped doing that after Phase 1 for sure, where it was just now it's just Marvel Studios. So they're doing that with DC, which is cool. But when that logo flips, you just hear the dun 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 dun, and it's very classic, you know, because like, as much as there's a lot of the John Williams theme in this movie, you know, it's reworked. They're doing different things with it. They're doing their own take on it. And one of my favorite things about the score of this movie, and I like a lot of the score. I like the Lois and Clark sort of romance theme. I like kind of the guitar that plays when the Justice Gang are involved doing stuff. I think there's a lot of good music in here. I think James Gunn knew that he couldn't do his usual like playlist of songs. This is Superman. It needs a score. But my favorite thing about the score in this movie is that they took like 2 notes of the original theme and turned it into its own theme, and I think it's amazing. So it's basically it's basically the bit of the original theme where it goes dan 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 dan. It just takes that dan and just sort of like builds like a 2-note like theme out of it.
Yeah.
And every time it plays, I just like I get hyped, and even more so the second time, because by the time I saw it the second time, I'd listened to the score dozens and dozens of times. You know, I was so primed. I'm coming in. So, and it's so. I think what's so good about it is that it feels fresh, it feels new, but it still feels like John Williams Superman. Like it's got both. It's the best of both worlds. It's so good.
I cannot overstate like as because I'm the type that's avoiding trailers. So I've seen the original trailer. There was no way I could get around that. I watched it maybe twice, and then I just set it aside. I was like, all right, I've seen that. I'm good to go. But I recognized that score was good. But I thought to myself, okay, is that maybe just a trailer score? Is that the sort of like, you know, Hans Zimmer's, or it wasn't Hans Zimmer, but Hans Zimmer made the score to Inception, but there was a different score that we used in the trailer that everyone just kind of associates as the theme from Inception, you know? Was it that sort of situation? As it comes in this movie, there is many moments, but one moment in specific where the score and the visuals just so perfectly go in sync with each other that both times I watched this, the second time, knowing it was coming, I genuinely teared up because of just how great. The score really works here.
Yeah, there's two moments on the second viewing that I teared up at, which, and it's this weird thing where because I know the context of the whole movie now, and I know how important like a certain moment is now in the context of the whole story, there's two moments, and they're very close together actually, that got me to tear up. So we'll see.
I bet I know them.
We'll see if we land on those once we get into spoilers.
But no, with going on what you were saying though with the John Williams theme, I think that the core difference between the two is that John Williams theme, it's fantastic, it's amazing. It feels like the definition of heroism. It feels like the definition of these sort of incredible feats that only Superman can do. Whereas I feel like the emotion that I get out of this, specifically when they switch over to that 2-note leitmotif, like you said, is still the heroism, but much more of an optimism, much more of a hopefulness. It feels like it's brighter more so than the Superman. The Superman one feels just overall joyous. This one feels more emotionally resonant and in a much brighter way.
Yeah, it kind of floored me when I heard that bit, because there's obviously other sprinkles of the old theme all throughout. So some of the really good moments that, really make use of it. But the few moments in the movie where you hear that sort of new take on like just that 2-note motif that they've taken from the original music, just got me so hyped, even more so in the second time. It's the sort of thing where it's settled in a lot of ways. So why I praise the music. Now, one of the things that I was a little critical of with the trailers was how the movie looked. So, going into this, I was, I kind of made peace with it. I was like, okay, it has this look. It's very like bright and a little bit flat looking compared to what, some movies can look like. And it's not like a new thing. This is not an accident. I think James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie and I think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 both looked like this as well. And I do think they look lesser to me than his other movies because his other movies look more like movies. These look a bit more like, I don't know, like a super high budget digital TV show, I guess, is the way I'd phrase it.
It reminds you back of his early days when he was doing Scooby-Doo.
Very good. Which is not to say that I think the movie doesn't look good in a lot of ways, because it's it's colorful, the suit pops. I think the effects are generally very good, right? I think I never felt like, oh, this is an ugly CG moment. It's just, admittedly, sometimes that's the sort of thing I notice more in TV at home than I do at the cinema, but certainly nothing was sticking out to me as, this CG looks weird or whatever. That wasn't happening. So I wasn't bothered by the visuals at all throughout. But, if I'm going to compare it to like the original Richard Donner Superman, that movie looks better. That movie looks like an epic cinematic like visual achievement. This looks good. It looks fine, but it's not that, and that's okay. But it's definitely like a critique that I have to kind of throw out there.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Part of me does kind of feel like it is just maybe like a sign of the times, I guess. I don't know how best to describe it, where, look at the films from the early 2000s. Most of them don't look great anymore. And that's not just because of like filming quality or anything like that, but there was just a certain style to them that kind of just permeated the meta, permeated this entire idea of what cinema should look like. And I kind of feel like the style that Superman has is more so of just what I feel like I see in most films nowadays. It's kind of just what we're doing at this point. Yes, there's things that buck the trend, but it kind of feels like it's fitting more into that than something like Superman, where that felt a lot more down to earth in the moments where it was just film stock and all that. And that's what made the Superman flights feel that much more exciting and out there.
Now, I'm not critiquing the choice necessarily, because I'm like, okay, he wants this to feel like one of the Justice League animated series or something. So maybe having this kind of look is part of what Gunn's doing to make it feel like this is the world we're in, and it's going to fit into this bright box, and it's going to work. But I think there could have been like a happier medium where, and again, I'm not complaining about the bright colors, because Jesus, we needed them. Like I was begging to go back and listen to the Superman Returns review. I was begging for more color in this, but yeah. So that was the only main thing that I wanted to shout out before we maybe get into the spoilers. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we start diving in?
We did the score. There is a licensed soundtrack. There is licensed songs in this.
There's a couple.
I think that comes with James Gunn's territory. Personally, my style of music, I like it. I don't think there was anything that stood off as like bad. That is one thing that I had with Creatures Commandos is it also has licensed music, but it is, I think, almost exclusively the music of an artist named Gogo Bordello. And I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but it is absolutely not for everybody. It is very like an Eastern Russian sort of feel to it. It's a very strange style to put into that. And that's what had me a little bit concerned, because it's a lot more prevalent in that show than it is in this movie. But going into this, I think that, like you said, it's a couple of songs. It's used very sparingly, but in the moments where it is used, I think it's used well.
Well, it's very thematic, you know? Like, I think, like, at least one of the songs, one's kind of just random, but one is very much like a final little bow on a thematic point that the movie was making. So it's used sparingly, and I think it was the right choice to cut down significantly on music like that, because I do think Superman, it should have a score. Superman belongs to, he's too majestic. You don't do the Guardians of the Galaxy playlist, and I think Gunn knew that, and I think that's why the choice was made not to do the typical thing that he usually does. For the better. I think it was the right choice, 100%.
Yeah.
So, I guess the only characters that are maybe not like in the amazing territory would maybe be the superpowered kind of villains that work under Lex. And I think it's just by the nature of, like, Lex is the real villain. He's the interesting one. They're kind of, obviously we can't talk too much about them, spoiler free, but, just compared to everyone else, where absolutely everyone else, I'm like, I want more of them. I want more Metamorpho. I want more of the Justice Gang. I want more of Lex, of Lois, of the parents, of the Daily... Steve Lombard! They cast a Steve Lombard for the Daily Planet, not just Cat Grant. It's a miracle, everyone. Like, I want more of all of them.
That's fair. When it comes down to Lex's goons, again, without spoiling anything, one of them is kind of the big, bulky, doesn't talk a lot character, and one is more, I'll say, athletic, younger woman. She's the one who's like in the fights and is able to do like more stunt work.
Yes.
But in terms of the characterization, obviously one of them being bigger, slower, bumbling, it's kind of hard to lend a character to that, and by the time we hit the end of the movie, it's obvious why they didn't. As for the other one, I feel like she was kind of given the short end of the stick, where I noticed a lot of her dialogue was pretty much just expository. It was her forwarding the plot and saying, like, here's what's going on right now, and we don't actually find out pretty much anything about her over the course of the whole plot. So that's kind of a consequence of, I don't think she got good characterization, is all she was left with was exposition.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning again, though, that in a movie with like 20 characters, like, this is the only one that kind of feels a little shortchanged. But that's kind of impressive, actually, when you stop and think about it. So, yeah. All right, I think we need to get into spoilers and
45 minutes. Let's do it.
So yeah, you have been warned. Full spoilers for Superman 2025 from this point forward. Okay. The movie begins with some text, like I said earlier, and I think I really liked this text because it got me so hyped. Like, just the first line being 3,000 years ago, metahumans, were thrust upon the earth, right?
300 to be clear, but yes.
So it was like a sort of three motif where it's like 3 centuries.
Metahumans. 3 centuries ago, metahumans.
Yes.
3 decades ago, Krypton exploded.
That's not technically. I mean, this is really nitpicky.
All right, but he arrived on Earth.
Yes,
whatever.
He arrived on Earth. 2 Kansas farmers raised him. 3 years ago, he reveals himself as Superman, the most powerful metahuman of all.
3 weeks ago, he interrupts the thing in Jarhanpur. There's a country that's being invaded by Boravia called Jarhanpur. and he just gets in the way of that.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. Now, there's a lot of details to that, which we'll have to get into. And then it's like 3 hours ago, Hammer Bavaria attacked Metropolis, and then like 3 minutes ago, he lost his first fight. Like for the first time, he failed. And then we start with what the teaser trailer had, which is him landing in the snow, coughing up blood, and that's where we kick this movie off. Like this is actually how it begins. I think all that text was cool. It had a countdown kind of thing because it was like centuries, decades, years, so on, until it was like, okay, 3 minutes ago, we're here. We've led into this perfectly. Great. But starting in this way, where he's already injured, and he's already had his ass kicked, it really does kind of like set you on the back foot, where you're like, oh, okay, so we're not going to do the slow build up to his first fight in the movie. We're already starting off with everything else, and he does the whistle for Crypto, and Crypto comes over and starts jumping on him, and he's like, I'm in pain, stop it, Crypto, to take me home.
Yeah.
Joe was so funny. When that trailer came out, and he said, home, Crypto, take me home, and he hands him the cape, and Crypto starts running with him, I, for some reason, assumed that meant the Smallville, like, Kent farm, even though it makes way more sense that it is what it is in the movie, is that it's the fortress, which is like, 5 minutes that way, because they're in the Arctic.
No, I can see from like a theming perspective, if you hear Clark Kent or Superman say home in a private moment, you would think Smallville. But
yeah, well,
obviously as the movie presents it in snow, it makes a lot more sense of like, no, let's go to the closer one.
Yes. Well, I mean, it makes sense from the perspective that Crypto thinks the fortress is home, because that's where Crypto's been staying. So that makes a lot of sense as well. So yeah, the fortress hides in this continuity. The fortress goes below the ice and rises up when Superman gets close. It kind of reacts to his DNA. But it's very kind of traditional in terms of the crystals and all the ice and all that. And he comes in, the robots are there, and they're like, okay, we need to patch him up. He yells sunlight, and they've got all these magnifying glasses that beam the sunlight into him.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting little bit.
And each of the robots, they try to give them a little bit of personality here, but they make it clear that they're not sentient or anything. And they specifically bring up, do you want to hear your parents' message? Because it calms you. It makes you feel good. It
soothes him, I believe, is the line that Gary keeps saying.
And they bring up the message, and I mean, this is the Aunt May problem that was going on in Marvel, where she was just getting younger and younger. I feel like there is no way Bradley Cooper can be Jor-El. He's not at that. I mean, he's fine. He's okay in this, but like from an age perspective, that's crazy to me.
Wait, why is it? What age should he be when he sends Superman to Earth?
I don't know, but that's like in my mind, I have Marlon Brando first and foremost, and like that's just like somewhere in like late 60s, early 70s in my head. I know it's not, but like visually, that's where I'm at. And then I have Russell Crowe after that, a little bit less, still in like 50s, but then Bradley Cooper, I don't know what age he is, but like in my head, he's at like late 30s, and that's just weird to me.
He's definitely in his 40s.
I know he is, but in my head, he's younger than that.
He's 50.
Is he?
He is 50. He turned 50 in January.
He looks good. Good on him.
I never even considered the age. Also, Lara's played by Amanda Serafin, who most people probably know from Westworld. So they're speaking a different language. They're speaking Kryptonian, and there's like a translator. Anyway, it's the typical stuff like, oh, we love you, my son. We sent you to Earth. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
All positive things at this point, which is worth pointing out.
But it does glitch out at the end. There's a little glitch, and they specifically point out saying during the ship, when it landed, it got damaged, and we can't recover what happened after that.
Which is interesting because it means Superman didn't get like a whole, or maybe he still got an encyclopedia of knowledge, but he doesn't have like tons of like his dad talking to him like the classic movies.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's like, hey, put in Crystal 5 for Jor-El's thoughts on like astronomy or whatever the different ones are.
It's weird because like obviously these robots feel like they are of some level of Kryptonian tech. It feels like they were to some extent. So there has to be something that was inherited from Krypton. But yeah, it doesn't feel like there's just come here and ask whatever questions. I've just got a whole AI built up with my brain scan.
Yeah, ironically, the Superman movie that came out in 2025 is the one where they've done away with the AI dead parent. Yeah. So
probably because nowadays it's not as impressive. It's like, yeah, no, we've got one of those. It's in my phone.
So yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of vibes here as we're seeing the fortress and the he gets back up. He's not quite at full strength, but he's like, hey, Hammer Bavaria is attacking Metropolis. I need to go. But they set up that Crypto's kind of a bad dog. He's kind of wrecked part of the fortress. He's a bit useless, and Superman flies off. Theme plays, we get some great shots of him flying, and the camera comes down, looks at his logo, and it transitions to the title, which isn't quite the old school type of like text, but it's definitely homaging it a little bit. There's definitely a little bit of that feeling of whooshing onto the screen that we're going for.
Honestly, you could say that about 90% of stuff in this movie. It's not the old thing, but there's an homage in there. You can feel a little bit of something going on.
We'll talk about Luthopia. Or whatever it was called a bit later. Somehow Lex almost ended up with some beachfront property, and I lost my shit.
The moment it's revealed that, like, obviously it turns out to be a double swerve, but the moment it swerves, it says, like, no, this was all a real estate plan. I'm like, son of a bitch, he did it again. How does he keep doing it?
Oh dear. So yeah, we get a little bit of a fight with the Hammer Bavaria, who's got like a Juggernaut style helmet thing on and like this armor, but he's clearly flying, whoever this is, you know. And
he's got heat vision or some laser vision.
You're picking up a lot of information here. You've okay, the text told us about Superman intervening in these two countries, like one was invading the other and he got involved. Now this idea that the invading countries got like a supervillain that they've sent to Metropolis, but the creepy president from Bavaria is like not claiming responsibility for this supervillain, as we see in the news like 2 minutes later. So there's like a lot of moving parts, like the backstory that they've sort of thrust us into here.
But I feel like the movie makes it clear you're not supposed to fully understand everything yet. Like we have a full scene later on with Lois and Clark where it's just breaking it down and saying, here's what happened prior to the movie starting, and we'll slow everything down until you get it.
Yeah, for sure. Like it reiterates things throughout. You do eventually completely understand it by the time you get to the important beats when you need to know things later on. But it's just one of those things where on a second viewing, though, when you go in already knowing it, you're sort of picking up all the details already, you know, the references to things that are coming later. Yeah, Superman gets knocked down pretty hard, and Malik, the falafel vendor, helps him up.
Yes.
Remember Malik. He's coming up later.
Apparently Superman saved Malik from something else, so they're tight. They're cool. And then, we see at this point that the Hammer, at this point they're calling him, is to some extent being controlled or directed by Lex.
Yeah, Lex is calling out moves. He's got like, give him a 7B, give him a 32F, so on and so on. But this, as this is happening, though, we see the engineer, who's like the female henchman for Lex, who's in the Arctic, is looking for where Superman went when he fled the city, and sees the fortress, but the fortress, you know, sinks into the ground, so she can't get to it. But it turns out that this entire like fight here is to distract Superman so that she could find this spot, because Lex has got some plans. Once they've achieved this, they basically, okay, it's time to pull out, get the Hammer Bavaria out of there, and he flies to a tent on a beach where there's a sort of camp set up, and then goes through a door which is like a portal to a pocket dimension, and then comes out of a second door in the pocket dimension into where Lexi's headquarters are in the Luthor building. This is the moment where you're like, okay, we're going full comic book nonsense here. We've got portals to pocket dimensions happening.
So there was, obviously they don't explain the pocket universe and all that sort of stuff yet, but in the moment where this happened, first watch through, my mind is immediately racing with like, how many things did we just establish just now? Are these boom tubes? Are we doing boom tubes? What's that area that he walked through there? Is that Phantom Zone? Is that Apocalypse? What are we doing here?
So when he walks through the portal on the Lex side, right, and he comes out, and someone says, Ultraman's back, and I sat up and went, wait a minute, right? And what's so funny is later on, when Lex is explaining, I think to Superman, the pocket dimensions, he talks about it being the space between two universes. And I went, okay, I think they're going to swerve me later, but they're giving me enough to believe that this is actually Ultraman from Earth 3. This pocket dimension is between this Earth and Earth 3, which is where Ultraman comes from. That's not the case, but they definitely got my mind going. Gunn was keeping me on my toes.
No, yeah, I think it's very intentional that they chose the name Ultraman to keep you guessing as to what this is. Because for non-comics people, it's just okay, so it's like Superman, but not, because Super and Ultra are essentially synonyms. But for comics readers, it's specific. You know who Ultraman is. Yeah.
That said, though, I think for comic book readers or anyone who knows Superman well enough, there is definitely a tell very early on where you're like, oh, that's a Superman clone. That's just a Superman clone. This is Lex doing his like Bizarro thing, and he might still technically become Bizarro based on where he ends at the end of this movie. So we'll get to that. But
we'll get to it. But I think the arc is done. I think we've established this was Bizarro, but it's just what it was.
Okay. You don't think he's going to come up in a later movie some point with the backboard's S and talking dumb?
Nope. I think that's a bit too comic-y. I mean, maybe in like chapter 2 or 3 past Gods and Monsters, but I don't think anytime soon.
I don't think it will be anytime soon, but like I feel like the option's there. You know, he just went into a black hole. Like he's out there. He's founding Bizarro World right now. That's what he's doing.
I mean, I'll go ahead and say if we're talking about this here, the one thing that I was waiting for in this thing is that all of the moves that he calls out to this clone, Lex Luthor calls out to him, are number letter. They are 34F, 17G, and they correspond to different moves. And towards the end of one of the fight scenes, he repeats a single move over and over, which is just like a standard heavy punch. It's just 1A, 1A, 1A.
Yeah, it's 1A, yeah. Because the most basic move is just a straight punch to the face. That's a 1A.
I was waiting whenever they said this letter number combo for it to be 0B or B0. Because in the current continuity, B0 is what led to him being called Bizarro. Like, that was a direct link there. That was established over in Forever Evil. And especially when he's saying 1A, I'm like, if he just changed it to 0B, because he's repeating it, he's saying Bizarro. He's saying it at that point. Never officially made that link, but I was waiting for it to happen.
Okay. So we're interested Eve here as well, who's taking selfies. That's an important plot detail.
Strangely enough.
Yeah, one of the techies that are working for Lex is called Otis. They did get the name Otis in there just for
his full name, as credited, is Otis Berg, which is the name of the town of Otisburg that was originally on the Superman 1 map.
So it says all this stuff up, right? We get Lex introduction, villain, and he succeeded. Whatever he was up to, and we don't really know what he was up to yet, other than wanting to find the fortress. He succeeded in his mission. He's gotten away with it. Superman kind of lost. Because at the end of the fight scene, when the Hammer of Bavaria, who turns out to be Ultraman, flies away, Superman tries to take off to go after him, and he just can't. Like, he just kind of like buckles because, oh no, I just get hit to the ground from like 300 feet in the air. I'm not all here, pal. I need to recharge.
Yeah.
So,
and one of the guys who's standing around watching him is basically like tudding him, just saying like, maybe you shouldn't have done that stuff with your hamper, Superman. And Superman's like, okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we get introduced to Daily Planet. We get introduced to him as Clark. And there's a little bit of bumbling around. We get introduced to the various members of the Daily Planet. Lois being the main one, but Jimmy's there, Steve Lombard, Cat Grant's there. They set up in this scene that Jimmy's kind of a chick magnet because there's a couple of ladies looking over at him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I swear to God, if it weren't for how this movie ends up doing Jimmy, I would not have been surprised if they would have made Jimmy gay, because he has zero interest in any of these women. He's like, what? I don't even care.
He's just bored. He's just bored of all the attention. And I think what they're going for.
Who needs to be a CIA agent when you're Jimmy goddamn Olsen? The other part of this sequence is, as Clark has written an article about the stuff that happened the other day with the hammer, he and Lois get into a little verbal sparring match, and it's heavily implied that Lois doesn't know he's Superman. Lois doesn't like him at this point. They're not in any sort of relationship or anything like that. And she's just kind of riding him for publishing an article that she wanted the front page byline for.
Clark's also on the phone to his parents as he's walking in, so it establishes so many characters in the space of about a minute with this walkthrough of him getting to his desk, and but it does establish that him and Jimmy are friendly because he's all congratulatory about the page one, the front cover news article and all that. There's also a scene right after this where Lex is with like a bunch of like the US like Secretary of Defense and whoever else is in the room. And it's a bit of an exposition scene. It's him kind of explaining who Ultraman and the Engineer are, and he's also got these like he calls them Raptors, all these soldiers who are in like these flying jetpack suits.
And he calls his little defense group Planet Watch.
Yes.
Which I'll go ahead and just say, because of my knowledge, I don't know if you're aware of the group. What do you know about Stormwatch?
Not a lot. I've heard of Stormwatch.
All right, so Stormwatch originally came from Wildstorm, which was a totally separate comic imprint, came over, got folded into DC Universe when one of the publishers became publisher at DC. That is where the Engineer character comes from. Engineer is a member of Stormwatch. And as soon as they said Planet Watch and she's on the team, I'm like, okay, so we're doing that. We're eventually going to turn this into Stormwatch. That's how this is going to end up, but not in this movie. Not yet, at least.
Yeah, so Lex is basically arguing, hey, we need to take care of Superman, right? Like, he did that whole thing where he intervened, and technically Bavaria is an ally of the US, so he's acting against our interests. We should probably do something. And the others are all kind of like, I mean, they kind of admit that they're a little bit uneasy about how powerful Superman is, but everyone likes him. He's doing all these good things. We really can't just try and deal with them. But Lex makes it clear that he's got a solution for kryptonite, that he is ready to go, and he's being, very manipulative Lex. Like, he's very much trying to get everyone on his side about like not liking Superman.
That was one of the throwaway lines I like the most in terms of world setup, is they mention kryptonite, and then I think it's Rick Flag who actually says, but it was my understanding that there isn't any left on Earth anymore.
Yeah.
There's this implication that we've already had a storyline involving all the kryptonite on the planet, that something happened to it and now it's gone. And I like that just tiny little storytelling moment where it's giving backstory to something happened to the kryptonite. You don't need to worry about it in large quantities at the very least.
I appreciate that like Lex is somewhat like fought outward about how like concerned he is about Superman. Obviously they don't know just how petty he is about it and how evil he's willing to go to deal with it. But I like that he is openly trying to affect that change, where he's trying to convince everyone else. And that's part of the movie. And it's one of the things that I like about early Superman Lex stories, is this idea of Lex trying to ruin Superman's reputation, which is a big part of the plot of this movie. So, you know, he doesn't want Superman to be loved. He wants to be loved. He wants to be seen as the hero of the world, not this alien. He's not even human.
There's an entire ending monologue where he just fully admits, like, of course I'm driven by envy, but like, that doesn't make me any less right. I'm 100% justified in everything I'm doing here. And he absolutely drinks his own Kool-Aid for sure.
Let me get introduced to the fact that Lois and Clark are dating. She comes home, hears some noises, but it's Clark. They start smooching. He's making her breakfast for dinner. And this is what gets us to the scene where she's kind of he's like, hey, that was fun today. We were kind of bickering and Jimmy was eating up. And Lois does point out, hey, ethically, there's some problems with you interviewing Superman. I mean, first of all, people will eventually figure out that you're Superman. But more importantly, ethically, there's some issues there because, like, you know all the questions, you know all the answers, you're interviewing yourself. And he's like, well, fine, you interview me then. And she's like, really? We're doing that now. We're doing that right now.
It feels like he just offered up like some sex thing that she's been asking for forever, because you can see his immediate regret of like, oh, I'm not sure about this anymore.
Yeah. And this is a long sequence. This is like... It's a very important scene because it's really clearly establishing both of these characters. And yeah, obviously we've seen a bit of Superman already. But this is getting into how he feels about things, how he tackles things, and how he might be a little naive, and like how he approaches certain things, but the well intentions are there. And Lois, as you expect, does not pull punches. When she's asking questions here, she frames it from, okay, so you intervened and stopped this war. And I don't remember the order of the questions necessarily, but she gets to a lot of points here about how, well, were you representing the US when you did that? And he's like, no, I was representing me. It's like, well,
Right.
they're an ally of the US. I mean, it kind of looks dodgy. Did you consult with the president first? Did you interact with the president of Bavaria? And one of the running things that keeps happening through this interview is that he or she keeps pausing the tape recorder because they have to do an aside that has to be off the record. And he's like, no, I told you about that in private, Lois. We can't talk about that.
Clark 100% does not understand the off the record thing, and he says just something like, well, you can't publish that. And she's just like, bro, you saying I can't publish that is on the record. You can't not tell me the words off the record. And he just cannot get that through. No, I really like this scene a whole lot, not just from the expository standpoint, because it is what lets you understand what happened in Jarhanpur and what was the international incident that it was basically occurring there. But I like it from the viewpoint that this is kind of showing Lois representing the world kind of as we understand it and kind of just the world that Superman exists in, where nothing is black and white. Nothing is obvious of what is the right decision to make. Everything comes with 1,000 asterisks that you have to clear off, and anything that's done is going to be a half measure at best. And then Superman, Clark, comes back and he just says, the right thing to do isn't complicated. It's easy to see what the right thing to do is, and you don't need to justify yourself in doing the right thing.
He boils it down to one sentence. People were going to die. I stopped it. There was no thought process because it didn't need to be. People were going to die. Yeah. I stopped it from happening. And I think that's the first moment in the movie where the performance really lands, is the way his voice breaks as he yells, people were going to die. And it kind of is what convinces Lois to kind of calm down from the line of question a little bit, is like just the raw emotion that comes out of him when he says that. One of the things that I like as well about the way it does some exposition here is that obviously, it sets up, okay, we've got these two countries, one's more of a bully, they want to go in and take Janapur, which, by the way, very DC to all have all these fake country names, so we're not touching on any toes.
I would love to see a map of the Middle East according to DC Comics, because there must be at least like 200 countries there.
But one of the things that comes up here that I really liked is when Lois kind of gets to the question of, like, as far as we know, Bavaria haven't done anything wrong, and they're going to liberate people who are apparently, they're saying, oh, the government of Janapur are enslaving their people and they need to be stopped. And Superman says, we know that's bullshit though. Come on, like that's an obvious lie. And she's like, yeah, I think it is an obvious lie, but we don't know that for sure. So, and it suggests so much about who Bavaria are and the type of sleazeball their president is before we even really get a proper look at him, because it's like, okay, you can tell the propaganda that comes out of his mouth, that comes out of the country, and you understand kind of the open secret of it all. It's like, okay, we all know that they're just evil bastards, but they just kind of keep it off the record, and we have to kind of dance around it.
Yeah, there's one tiny little throwaway line during that same conversation where I think it's Clark says, well, yeah, Jarhanpur might be struggling as a country, or they might be like a failed country or something like that, but that doesn't give the people there, like, they don't have to die because of that. Like, he basically points out, like, yeah, maybe there's an obvious lie that this guy is doing this for noble intentions, but it's also not as clear-cut in the real world, in Lois's point of view. It's not as clear-cut that this country is just a peace-loving commune that was totally innocent, and there was nothing that anyone could have really used against them as an invasion. There was some truth to it, but Superman points out, like, it doesn't matter. People still shouldn't be killed for that. Yeah,
I think the exact line he says is, like, that doesn't give another country the right to invade them. Like, it doesn't matter. So, now, I like this debate because I think both of them feel like they have good points, but ultimately the simple, like, no, Superman's always going to boil it down to here's the right thing and here's the wrong thing, regardless of what the rest of the politics are, is that I'm not letting people be killed.
And honestly, I think that's kind of what, because if I think back to Man of Steel Superman, Snyderverse Superman, if you ask me what is his moral code, what is his defining feature, I couldn't tell you. I feel like it's so amorphous, it's going to change by the scene, let alone the movie. But this one, top to bottom, everything he does is nobody should be killed. If we can save a life, we save a life. And that's everything that he does is informed by that. And I think that's like, there's a little bit more to it in terms of like morality, but that's almost comic accurate Superman more than anything else I've ever seen.
Yeah. And, this kind of ends on a sour note where he wants to leave because it's getting a bit too uncomfortable. And she kind of criticizes that. And there's a little kind of cold comment about how this wasn't going to work. And it's kind of clear to the audience that she means the relationship. But he's like, what do you mean by that, Lois? What do you mean by that? And he still leaves. He doesn't like put his coat down and like try and actually talk it out. It does present a character who is still a little bit flawed because, as she herself points out, is that he just kind of avoids conflict when they hit a roadblock. He just kind of acts like nothing's wrong and kind of leaves, and that's something that he has to grow out of. So I appreciated that quite a bit. So I mean, from here, the movie kind of progresses on a couple of different fronts. The big main one, of course, is what Lex is up to, which then feeds back into what Superman and co are doing. So Lex's whole thing is he wants to get to the Fortress of Solitude because he wants to find some way to make the world hate Superman. And he gets there, and of course, as they're walking towards it, it just rises up. And even though Superman doesn't say until much later, how did they get in here? It's keyed to my DNA. As soon as it started rising, when there was no reason for it to, I'm like, okay, Ultraman's a Superman clone then. Or maybe he's Superman from Earth 3, but either way, he is a Superman.
It's given up by, I think it's the engineer's look. She's like, oh, well, it's down at how are we supposed to get it up if Superman isn't here? And then it starts rising up and it's like, oh, okay, Lex has something in his back pocket, but instead it's the 7-foot tall guy right behind him.
Yeah, so they go in and like they find the computer. There's a whole little action scene here where engineers like scrapping all the robots, and Crypto gets muzzled with nanobots because that's the engineer's thing. She's got nanobots in her system and she can kind of use it to like form anything she kind of wants, weapon wise or whatever, or a jetpack that pops out of her back as we see repeatedly.
Or interface with computers and tech because she walks up to the computer at the fortress and she's like, oh, hey, I found the parent's message. Turns out you just got to check this box right here and you can get the rest of the message. So let's see what that says.
Yeah, so it kind of leaves it on that note, and it just kind of implies that Lex has found his golden goose. And the city, to sort of keep Superman distracted, some of his goons let out this little creature that turns into a kaiju-sized monster. Now, where this thing came from, they never explained this. Lex got his hands on some alien creature somehow. Yeah. So, here it is. Everything with this kaiju is... This entire sequence is gold from start to finish.
It's fantastic. Like, if you split it into two sections, before and after the Justice Gang show up. The parts where it's Superman... They're letting the music swell. They're letting it really play here as the fight scene continues. And they're showing how he's literally not taking a break from protecting people as he's fighting this kaiju. Number one priority as we start the scene is he's stopping the foot from coming down until a little dog gets out of the way.
And he has to use his super breath to blow the dog away because the dog's not doing what it's told.
Yes, exactly. And then like the creature at one point uses its fire breath. It ends up hitting an office. He just stops the fight with the creature, turns around to the office, be like, is everyone good? Everyone fine? And as they all say yes, he's like, okay, back to the fight. Yeah,
and that's when he does the hey, big guy eyes up here and flies up and then punches him down hard in the face. But there's also a lot of in fact, right before he uses the fire breath, I think is when he punches him towards that building, then he swoops around quickly to grab him so he doesn't actually get into the building, because the building will topple. This thing is huge. So there's a lot of him like doing damage control and making sure people are safe, and then ultimately, at a certain point the Justice Gang shows up. This is their introduction into the movie, and there's three of them at this point, which is Hot Girl, Mr. Terrific, and Guy Gardner. So can I just tell you how exciting it is to just see a Green Lantern making constructs, and it's not stupid or goofy, it's just he's just making constructs that make sense for the purpose of which he's using them.
Yeah, no, and from a character viewpoint, it feels like it fits Guy as well. It doesn't feel like it's, oh, Guy's never been the type that makes like an overly complicated mech or
No.
like, like machinery and artillery or whatever. He's very simple. So when this beast is like throwing claws and stuff around, it's scratching things, he just makes giant oven mitts because, yeah, that's what he would do.
Yeah, at one point he makes like a jackhammer type thing that just keeps poking at its eye because he's like, go for the eyes, that's the weak spot.
Second time I watched this, I brought my fiance to see it for her first time, and the moment they started doing eye stuff, she was like, oh god, I don't like it.
No, I mean, obviously this established the difference between Superman and the others, because Superman's like, I'm trying to think of a way, Mr. Terrific, to have taken it down without harming it, and Terrific's just like, oh, come on, dude. And they're just trying to kill it. They're throwing grenades into its mouth, and in fact, it's the only time I think in the movie we see the X-ray vision is because Superman looks inside the kaiju's body, and you can see the explosions going off in there.
Yeah, I think so. And that you can see how defeated he is. Like, he understands, like, okay, they did it, so be it. But he's not like super pissed off about it. He's not like enraged. He's just kind of like, I really was hoping to find a better way here, guys. I'm a bit disappointed that you did that.
Yeah, and there's some other good bits in here that's not mentioned. Like, when they hit the creature, it like backs up into this big like crate of like tanks that almost hit a little girl. That shot's in the trailer of him in slow motion going around her and protecting her. And then there's the squirrel bits in here as well, where he swoops in and saves the squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't, if I didn't know it was supposed to be there, I wouldn't have had a problem with it being cut. That's fine. But like, it being there doesn't take away from anything for me.
No, and it's like 3 seconds. Like, come on. Just be real here. He also swoops in and saves a woman at one point, and that's right before the Justice Gang show up. So, now there's lots of good stuff here. I also even just like the fact that he has to sort of set him down gently at the end. Like, they've killed it, so it's going to topple over, and Superman has to come in and like sort of catch it and lower him down gently. Like, all that stuff is just great. It feels big. It feels comic booky. And then from a plot perspective, like, this leads right into the big reveal where on the news it's like, hey, Lex Luthor's obtained Superman's message from his homeworld. He's here to conquer us. And they start playing the message, and Superman's like, what's wrong with any of this? This is all the good, nice stuff that I like. And then
it's the first half. It's the part before the glitch.
And then it glitches, and then it's like, yeah, Superman, they are weak. You can rule them. But they don't say Superman, obviously. They didn't have that name. But it's like, yeah, Kal-El, rule them. Make sure you impregnate as many women as possible to spread the seed of Krypton.
Get rid of any that cannot serve you. Call the weak. And like the rest of the crowd who's gathered around the thanking for the kaiju thing is now backing away. They're all horrified, and they start throwing stuff at him as well. That was also in the trailer. Superman
was literally hugging children when this message started playing, and now they're all kind of backing away in horror because this looks quite bad. And the Justice Gang, like, Guy confronts him and says, well, go on, Blue, is this a thing? Like, he's ready to fight. And
I'm part of the Green Lantern Corps. If you're an alien despot, that is absolutely what I'm here to fight against. Let's go around.
I do really like, though, that the other two aren't like that. They're not confrontational. Like, Mr. Terrific backs up that it must be authentic for various reasons. It's not a fake. Lex didn't fake it. And then, like, Hawk Girl's asking if he's okay. Like they're not just jumping to, oh, he's a threat now. They're like, hey, you okay, Clark? Like, are you doing all right? This is kind of a big deal.
I do want to ask you about that. So you just said that Mr. Terrific backs up because it's authentic. And I think over the course of the movie, it becomes clear it is authentic. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that change to his technical origin?
This is definitely the biggest talking point amongst the idea of, like, stuff they have done differently, right? Superhero movies come along and they'll change things here or there from the comics or the established lore. This is clearly the big change. I don't think it's the first time this has ever happened, to be fair, though. I'm sure there's some comics where they're a bit more like
definitely alternate universe stuff, and definitely Elseworlds and whatever else, but I don't think it's been a mainline continuity thing.
There's definitely stuff where Jor-El's maybe less nice, and this is maybe just like a thing. So, okay, my thoughts on this. Just to get out of the way, I have heard a theory that the glitch might have something to do with Brainiac, so it is faked, but it wasn't faked by Lex, which I don't need them to do that. If anything, I think they're cowards if they retcon this now. Like, no, they've established this, stick to it. I don't hate it. And I'll tell you why I don't hate it. So many of these Superman movies are obsessed with the idea of Jor-El being God and Superman being Jesus. And this just eliminates that, like, immediately. It's like, no, we're not going to do Jor-El saying the father becomes the son becomes the father, you know, like, and I like, you know, I don't mind Jor-El's depiction usually, but I do think the movies have got a bit of a hard-on overall for Jor-El over, like, the Kents. And I actually really like that this movie goes out of its way to say, no, the Kents are more important. Because honestly, I think they are more important. And I hate that the movies have been so obsessed with this idea of God Jor-El. Like, Snyder did it, Singer did it, maybe not quite as much, but even Donner was a little guilty of it. Like, it feels like Donner did, like, to an extent, which was fine. And then it's gotten, like, more and more every new, like, filmmaker who comes along until James Gunn said, "Now screw that. The Kents are the important ones."
Yeah, I think it's... I actually watched a video just today that apparently there was a initiative that almost happened in the comics around 2000, around the turn of the millennium, that was essentially a let's focus more on Superman's isolation from humanity. Let's focus on more of, like, how he is this figure that lost his planet, his people, they're all gone and whatnot. He is an alien amongst us. It didn't go through, they went a different direction, but I feel like the movies didn't get that memo. I feel like the movies were like, no, yeah, he's an alien, he's isolated. We have to, what must it be like to lose your entire race and your planet and everything like that? And so we kind of just leaned into that for a while, which then makes Jor-El this last link to his people and something to be focused on. I think it is not even subtext to the movie. I think it is just the text of the movie of, A, you make your own self. You don't need to, like, listen to whatever your parents say to do it. But B, it's the ones who raise you that matter. It's the ones who give you that. It's not just your blood and, like, what your quote unquote purpose was when you were sent here. You define that yourself and how you were raised.
Superman's humanity is a big part of the heart of the character, and I like that this movie focuses on it. Now, did we have to, like, turn Jor-El and Lara into dicks to do it? We probably didn't, but this does firmly put us in a direction, and I like the direction that it puts us in. So yeah,
I feel like it's not even so much of dicks. If we get any more expansion on what Krypton was, I imagine that it is probably just going to be a thing where, like, no, it's just a cultural thing. Like, it's not even that they see anything inherently wrong with it. It's just like a thing of, no, it's Kryptonians just go out and, like, conquer. Like, that's what they do, is what we've always done.
Yeah.
If anything, I mean, it's implied a little bit in this that Supergirl, obviously she would have knowledge of what Krypton was prior to explosion, so it's implied a little bit that we might get a little bit more on what Krypton was from her.
Yeah, they could elaborate on this in the future. Like, is this just Jor-El and Lara's point of view? Is this, like, a societal thing that she's going to like recognize more? Kind of, you know, there's stuff they could do there with that for sure. But obviously Superman's pretty heartbroken here. He gets quite pissed because he goes to the fortress.
Yeah, someone points out, hey, how did he get this video? And he's like, oh crap, and zooms off.
Finds all the robots, doesn't find Crypto, which leads him to flying to Lex and flipping his tables all over the place, demanding to know where the dog is. And Lex is just a prick and feigns complete ignorance, except one little sly comment as he's drinking his coffee, just to be a dick.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what dog you're talking about. I've never seen this dog. And as he's drinking this, it's like, ugly dog, where's the cape? And Superman's like, what'd you say? What was that? Huh? He's like, huh? I didn't say it. What's going on?
Yeah. But he's playing out of Lexi's hands because it's been filmed. He's angry. He's yelling. It looks like he's stormed into, you know, this guy's office. It makes Superman look like he's an angry asshole.
One thing that I particularly like about this sequence is there's a talk show that Lex is on as he's revealing this to the world.
Yes.
And it's almost blink and you'll miss it, but when Superman busts into Lex's office, the talk show host is in the office talking to Lex, showing how implicit, like, the media is here, where they're, like, working together to take down Superman.
Yeah. So from here, like he's moping a bit. There's a big scene with Lois around here, where it kind of gets to the heart of the theme of the movie, which I really like. I also just love the fact that this entire conversation takes place while there's a dimensional imp floating in the sky in the background that the Justice Gang are fighting. So you just see like occasionally like a big green baseball bat hitting this big alien or whatever in the background. I love it. I love just how cartoony they've made this world feel in the best possible way.
I love how, because I remember that was either in the teaser image or one of the teaser trailers where people were seeing that in the background, and everyone was like, "Is that Starro? Is that the Sun Eater? What is this?" And then it's just like, "Oh, don't even worry about it. That's not even part of the plot. That's just happening literally in the background."
It establishes though just the world that we're in though. No, this is the DC universe. This isn't like meant to be super realistic and gritty. This is the DC universe where this shit's just happening in Metropolis every other night. And that makes sense in the context of having all these superheroes.
Yeah. Well, even during that scene with the kaiju, I feel like that was implied because there's one guy that they keep cutting back to where all this stuff is happening and he's just eating a cup of yogurt and just watching it from the window. He's like, "Nah, this is awesome." Like, this feels like it's a thing that constantly happens.
At least for the last 3 years since Superman showed up, this has become the norm, and they just deal with it.
I imagine it was very chaotic in that first, 6 months. Everyone was like, "Oh, God, why is this happening?" And then he's just like, "Oh, wait, never mind. It's just going to keep happening."
But yeah, so Lois and Clark have this conversation. He talks about the dog and whatever. But it gets to this idea of punk rock, where she talks about how different they are and that she was a punk rock kid. And Superman says, "Hey, I like punk rock." He lists some fake bands, and Lois is like, "Oh, those bands are not real punk rock. They're lame. Blah 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 blah.
They're practically pop. What are you talking about?"
And she defines kind of her being punk rock as, I grew up questioning everyone. It's kind of how she became the Lois Lane crack reporter, is because she questions things, she demands for answers, and she does not trust people. Whereas Superman is kind, and he thinks everyone he meets, he gives them the benefit of the doubt, and he thinks they're beautiful. That's the word she uses, that you think they're beautiful. And Superman hits back with, maybe that's the real punk rock. And I got so, see, especially the second time watching this, this wasn't even one of the moments I was talking about earlier, but I was getting kind of teary-eyed as he was saying this, because as a Superman fan who constantly has to hear jaded people who think he's lame say, Superman's lame, why would we do Superman when we can have Batman and we can have... And that's not that knock again. I love Batman. This is not any negative connotations to any other heroes. But people have this weird preconceived notion that Superman sucks and is boring for this reason and that reason and whatever. And having Superman in this movie basically say that it's more punk rock in 2025 to be kind to people and to expect the best of them, it's almost like a mission statement from the movie, and James Gunn saying, "No, here's why Superman is cool, because we could all use a little bit of this optimism in our lives. This is harder to be this than it is the cynical asshole. The cynical asshole is so easy to be now. Being this is the one that takes effort. It's tough and is hard to achieve." So I love this mantra of being kind is the punk rock now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was talking about during the initial thoughts, is there's this idea as you leave it of optimism, not just for the movie itself, but in a general sense. Superman as a character encourages you to be better. It's not just that Superman does what's right. He encourages others to be better simply by act of, you see him doing these things despite the fact the world says, "Hey, you're messing it up. You're doing it wrong. You should be much more jaded and much more against the world like everybody else." And he's like, "Well, no, because who benefits from that?" And so you just take that, you insulate, you work it into your own mantra, and as you leave, you're like, yeah, no, why should things just have to suck all the time,
Yeah, and he says, "I love you" for the first time. She does not say it back.
No, I was just explaining the context, because he's saying that he's going to turn himself into the government because he can't think of any other way to find crypto. He's searched all over, and he's like, wherever they take me is where they would have taken crypto. And Los is like, it's a dog, dude. And he's like, yeah, but dog is going to be scared, and I got to take care of him. It's like, you're so precious. I love you so much. Please.
Yeah. And I think by this point as well, we've had the first, like, Jimmy's got a contact that he's texted, and no, that's later.
Not yet.
No, because
that's what's in the universe.
Yeah, the pocket dimension is the thing that he gets from that, so that's a little bit later, you're right. So, yeah, he turns himself in, and, like, again, like, you know, we talk about the Bavaria and Johanapur. You know, you can relate that to Israel and Palestine. You can maybe relate it to Russia and Ukraine if you want to do it that way as well. This stuff where, like, Superman is being detained, even though he's turning himself in and he's been slammed into the ground by the super henchman. It's like, okay, so now this is Ice. We're doing some Ice commentary here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and they specifically say it's Rick Flag who's like, look, like, we know that you technically are probably going to be fine, but we can't handle you. So we have off-contracted your interrogation and your imprisonment to the one place that says they can handle you, which is, of course, Luthor Corps.
Yeah, and it's, you know, you're going to a camp. You're going to a camp that's off-grid, very literally, in this case.
Yep.
Especially once, you know, because when they take Superman to the camp and they put him through the portal to the pocket dimension, and they're taking him to his, you know, he walks straight into his cell, basically. That's where the portal opens. You know, Lex just kind of casually reveals that most of the prisoners here in this pocket dimension are, like, people who certain countries are like, oh, we don't like that journalist was asking too many questions. Make them disappear into the pocket dimension. Like, he's being paid to detain, like, just, like, people.
Political asylum. Like, the people who should be getting, like, you know, taken care of by other places. And then also reveals of, like, oh yeah, and that one over there is my ex-girlfriend who wrote a blog on me. Lex Luthor doesn't forgive. It's like, dear God, he's horrible.
He's so petty. Metamorpho's in there. They never use that name, actually, in the movie. They just call him Rex the Element Man, so worth mentioning.
He specifically uses the line, this is Rex, he's the Element Man. He can metamorphose any element.
Yes.
And so that's the only link we get to it, but they never give him the official title.
I think Element Man, I get why they said that instead, just because it's a bit more descriptive for anyone who doesn't know who he is. But yeah, he has Metamorpho make kryptonite. His hand turns into kryptonite, which immediately puts Superman down. He's in pain, and we see that Metamorpho's son is being held in a cell, like, across the way on the other side of the aisle, if you want to call it that. Which is forcing him to do this. It's forcing, you know, he's not a bad guy, but he's been forced under duress to keep Superman under lock and key.
A quick, the only thing I like Metamorpho as a character, but I will say the voice that they used for him is not the voice I had in my head for Metamorpho.
Sure.
I always had something more like gravelly, like The Thing. It's not, he did a good performance. I like the character. It just, when he first started talking, I'm like, oh, okay, that's a choice.
Yeah, it's different. Also, by this point, we've already had the scene, because I think it's that when they're talking about, oh, I bet he's got a super harem. The leader of Bavaria has one of the portals in his office, and he comes into the pocket dimension. That had already happened by this point. Where Lex just casually mentions, yeah, this donut shop's great. I'm going to open one in my half of Johanapur. And it's like, oh, you're getting some land, Lex? What's this you're saying here, Lex?
It's watching it on a repeat. I feel like this scene is not really necessary because it feels like it solely exists for getting that false lead of this is all for the real estate. Like, that's the only thing that comes out of this scene, really. But it's not inherently useless either. It shows the hooking up of this guy and Lex as well.
I think that's the main purpose of it. It's because it follows this president character to his office, then he goes through it's like, oh, he's working with Lex. Like, Lex is behind all of this country stuff as well. I think that's what the point of the sequence is. Yeah. So Superman's trapped. He's in this cell. He's in pain. There seems seemingly no hope, and immediately, like, Bavaria is, like, talking about getting the military at the border and or getting ready to invade. And Lois is trying to figure out how Lex is involved in all this crap. So we get kind of her side of this and investigating stuff. But we also get kind of where the movie pivots a little bit to her taking kind of the lead and going to the Justice Gang to try and get help, to go help with Superman and get him out.
Yeah. So real quick, just to center on plot-wise, Lois discovers some discrepancies where Lex sold a bunch of weapons but didn't get all the money back for it. So clearly they must be in league where he's getting more promises, which is where we get the Gigantor thing.
It was something like $70 billion worth of weapons for like $1.5 billion. I was like, that's a hell of a discount.
And as Lois is like, but I have no idea where he could have taken Superman. And that's where Jimmy hops on the phone, texts somebody named Mutant Toes, and immediately gets an answer of Superman is in a pocket universe. And Jimmy's like, you have no idea how much you owe me for that.
Yeah, which is very, very curious, like, tease that first time watch. I'm like, wait, who's he talking to?
I'm running through the list of heroes in my head. I'm just like, who has toes? That's weird. I don't remember anybody.
So she goes to the Justice Gang, and we get this just delightful sequence, because this is kind of where we get to see them a little bit kind of casually. And when I say casually, all I really mean is Hot Girl's got her helmet off. She's kind of like just sauntering around normally.
Just reading a newspaper, whatever. They're all at the Hall of Justice, though, which is proper Hall of Justice.
It's the Hall of Justice from the outside. It looks like the Hall of Justice from the comics. There's a big mural in the wall of like the JSA. I did at least notice Wildcat on this watch. I was looking for any recognizable members.
I saw Wildcat, Shining Knight, and strangely enough, because she's not a member of the JSA, I saw Princess Amethyst of Gem World.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Interesting. But she's... So there's a few things that happen here. This is obviously a very comedy focused scene, because Lois is asking for help, and they all basically say shrug and say no, because we don't want to get involved.
But Hawkgirl, Miss Terrific shrug. Guy gets very into his reasons.
Oh, yes. But we get the start of the running joke of what the name of the team is, and that it's the Justice Gang, although everyone but Guy's like, that's not the real name, we're not keeping that, but Guy's really into it. Guy starts to explain to Lois that Superman has a disguise because he has special hypno glasses that stop people from seeing his face. And this is the moment where I was like, okay, I genuinely don't know if this is a real thing the movie's saying he has, or if he's just said this to Guy and Guy's just an idiot and thinks that he's got magic glasses. I don't actually know.
Because Lois backs it up, Lois says, I know, but I haven't fully cleared that I actually know who Superman is, so maybe don't share this private information with just everybody on the street, Guy Gardner. Because she backed it up, I think that it is real. I think that is something that is actually to this character.
Yes, and then Guy like leans in like 2 seconds later and says, okay, you know Superman's Clark Kent, right?
Just like, oh my God. And I like her point where she's just like, why does he trust everyone with this information?
Oh dear. So yeah, so she tries to convince, she makes a dig at Guy's haircut, which did get a chuckle out of me because it is a stupid haircut.
What was the number he gave? She's like, that haircut should be illegal. And he's like, hey, 68 women disagree with you.
Oh, it was more. It was like 417. It was like hundreds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Of course, Guy'd be the guy to keep track.
But Mr. Terrific does follow her out and says, okay, you know, I had tracers in Superman's blood. Let's go and see the location that he disappeared at, you know, because he's kind of, like we said, off grid. Which maybe points to this pocket dimension thing being true. Honestly, the only joke in the movie that I don't think worked for me is the slow garage door bit here, where he's like, let's take my ride, and we get this long shot of the door going up, and eventually she makes a dig about, wait, you've got like a flying saucer, but you don't have a quicker door. And I'm like, that's the only joke in the whole movie where I'm just kind of like, that didn't work, but okay.
I think it's the only joke that doesn't... I agree. It doesn't work for me either. And I feel like it's the only one that severely stops the pacing.
Yes.
It does a full stop to, okay, we're just holding on this shot and watching it open. Whereas every other one of the humor bits is just a quick one-liner. It's just a quick, okay, we're done with it. We move on with the scene. But
so they fly out to the beach. Mr. Terrific gets his big solo fight scene where he puts Lois in a protective bubble with his T-spheres. And he does a whole action sequence where he's taking out all these guards with a song playing.
Supposed oneer.
Yeah. And I had this realization as I was watching this, and these T-spheres were flying around, and all the rest of it, where I was like, I've never thought about this before, but Mr. Terrific's basically the superhero version of like the tall man from Phantasm, because Phantasm they have these like chrome balls with blades that fly around and stab people. So they're basically evil T-spheres.
I'll take your word for it. I can't say I recall ever seeing Phantasm.
Anyway, I do particularly like when he grabs one of them and sort of uses it to sort of like fly up over the bubble. I appreciated that little bit.
No, yeah, I mean, the whole sequence, obviously it's not a real oneer. It's intercut between a whole bunch of different shots, but it is meant to be, and I like the kinetic atmosphere of it, where every once in a while, like, we'll follow a goon that's being attacked that, like, hits the bubble and like bounces off, and that'll transition to the next part of the fight scene on the other side of the bubble, and it's very kinetic in that way.
Yeah, and it's all from inside the bubble, like all the perspectives from Lois's side of it, which is cool. So while this was all playing out, there was a dark scene in the pocket dimension out of nowhere where Lex wanted to ask some questions, which he's technically doing on behalf of the US government. Of course, I don't think they know his methods, because Lex brings in Malik, the man who was nice to Superman and helped him back up on his feet, and he starts doing Russian roulette with him, where he starts spinning the chamber of a gun, pointing it to Malik and demanding Superman answer questions, and Malik's saying, no, don't do it, Superman, like, I don't have a family, don't answer his questions. And like, they kind of play it for like a dark joke, and I actually quite like this, where Lex, like, on the second like spin of the chamber, he shoots Malik in the head and Malik dies.
Yeah.
And Lex is like, oh, I thought that would last longer. And I'm like, that is so evil. And I like it from that perspective of Lex being evil. Obviously, Superman is badly, like, hurt emotionally by witnessing this and the fact that he couldn't save Malik. But the best part of it, though, is this is the thing that obviously is going to convince Metamorpho to like help Superman, because up until now he's been too scared to like do anything that Lex wouldn't want him to do. But after seeing this and seeing how bad Lex actually is, this is where he's like, okay, you said you can go and get my son if I like help you, like, can you do that? So as Lois and Terrific are coming in, we get this amazing sequence where he stops using kryptonite, like, he makes the kryptonite go away, but Superman's still hurt. He's still down. He's still struggling to get back up. He's like, I just need a minute. Like, it's tough because there's no sun in here. Like, the yellow sun's what heals me and what gives me my powers. And Metamorpho stands up and goes, well, I can't make a sun, but I can make something close to a sun. And he starts listing the elements or like stuff that's in the sun, and he makes a sun in his hands. I love this. And this basically started my trend of this movie, which is I love Metamorpho using his powers. I love how weird it is. I love when he's just a floating head with a little trail of like gas underneath him. All of it I love, because it's so comic booky and weird and different.
Going back to Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, which James Gunn of course directed in the DCEU. This is like the polka dot man sort of thing, where it's like he's such a weird character, but James Gunn knows how to give him just the right amount of like pathos and character. They're like, you give a damn by the end of it. Like, you actually care about this completely out there character who's so strange because it's given just the right amount of focus. But the one thing you said of Metamorpho, of him saying that he can't make a sun, I love the way it's delivered, where Superman says like, oh, I need a yellow sun in order to heal. And he's like, well, I can't make a sun. He's like, I know, but I can make something close to it. He's like, what? And then you just see him start making it, and this is like, oh, okay, I guess I never even considered that was part of the power set.
Yeah, I love the perspective where it cuts up to the guards and they look down and there's just like this bright light coming from the middle of the cells. It's just this kind of like, oh no, it's actually looks like a sun from this distance, like the way it's lighting up. And everything.
Then immediately the next shot is Superman gets up, punches the glass, immediately gets to the cell across where his son is being held, and knocks out the guy who's threatening the baby. And so it's just, it's like he made a promise, he immediately kept it, and he's Superman for that reason. Yep. Before we move on to the next sequence, there is one thing that I wanted to bring up, if you had any ideas about. All of this stuff in this parallel dimension, there's a little floating platform that Lex uses to get around. And it is piloted by a creature who is white with, like, as far as I could tell, just holes where the eyes should be. And he's just piloting this thing around. I believe he's given a name at one point, but I didn't actually catch what it was. Do you have any idea what this could be? If not just made for the movie.
It feels like a deep pull. I was expecting maybe a reveal or something later about who this, like, it's very, like, was it Sharon? The River Styx kind of vibe. There's a lot. That's what it feels like when he's like piloting this little platform around for Lex. So I don't know. I genuinely don't. Right. But it did stick out to me as well as something that might be from somewhere, but I couldn't tell you what.
It feels like in this world where aliens exist, where we know there's other planets and stuff like that, perhaps it's an alien, perhaps it's of some breed. My first thought went to, it looks a little bit like Saint Walker of Blue Lantern Corps, but it's not. Hopefully that's not Saint Walker. Dear God, what did they do to my boy?
It could be the same species.
Could be.
So that's the thing. Yeah. Also, one thing in the pocket dimension is that Lex has a bunch of monkeys who are just trash talking Superman online, and this is basically the take on the whole idea of the Russian bots trying to manipulate elections and whatnot. Is like just like a bunch of monkeys saying bad things about Superman, like, oh, we can't trust Superman anymore.
They're so enraged, and you just see like hashtag secret harem, hashtag secret harem.
So this is, I love that the plots are kind of intersecting here, where Superman's like trying to keep this baby safe. They're fighting some of the guards. In the end, he gets Crypto out of this containment field that he's in, but they end up falling into this, what is it, Proton River, I think Mr. Terrific called it.
It is MacGuffin River. Yes, it is. It's like anti-proton river, whatever. But like that implies that if you touch it, then you will be killed. And there doesn't seem to be a reason for that. Like multiple people are running into this and just bathing in it, essentially. It doesn't seem to be that big of a deal.
Well, I think Superman seems to be fine in it, but you can see that he's always holding the baby up so the baby doesn't touch it. So I think it is hurtful to most people.
Fair. I guess I'm a bit more concerned because some of the Raptor guards, as they're continuing this fight scene, seem to definitely go under, or at least touch it. And
I think they're dead. They are absolutely dead.
Think they're dead? Okay, fair enough.
And I don't think it's Superman acting out a character. It's not on him that they end up in that river, because they keep trying to fight him. I love when they corner Metamorpho and he just turns his body into acid and then splashes it at them, and then he's just a floating head. Love that visual. I also love the visual when they're going down the river and they're almost going into a black hole, and Metamorpho turns half of his body into just like a rocket. Like he's just firing like a rocket out of the bottom half of his body and trying to hold out his Superman and his baby and Crypto. Because there's a great moment here where, because it's slow motion, where Metamorpho's kind of like holding on to them, but Superman needs to give him an extra kick to sort of actually pull them back from the black hole. So Superman in slow motion starts using his super breath to blow them back the way to sort of his extra propulsion. And like the Superman theme hits as he's doing it, and it's all in slow motion. Crypto's kind of floating next to him. I was like, okay, this is so weird visually that I kind of love just how wild we're getting with this stuff.
I'll admit, I like the Pocket Universe design as a whole. I'm okay with the black hole being this threat or whatever. I feel like the anti-proton river scene was kind of just a little bit... It wasn't a bad action scene, but it felt a bit too much of leaning too heavily into the CGI, where...
Sure.
You know, it's all made of like cubes and stuff instead of it just being like water or a fluid or anything. It just felt like it was taking me out just a little bit too much, but it still was... It's brief enough. It's not a huge mark on the movie, and it's still a decent action scene regardless.
Yeah, I really like how it ends.
Yes.
I kind of get what you're saying, but I think they're going for the idea of it's truly alien, because it's like a river of cubes. Like, you know, it's truly something weird and different.
And I feel like I get that from the rest of the universe, but that just feels like a step too far for me.
So they follow one of the T-spheres back to the entrance where Lois and Terrific are, and they get out just in time before the portal door collapses. And it's like, hey, you came for me, Lois. All happy days. There's a really somber moment here where Metamorpho just sort of like walks into the darkness with his baby, and it feels like, oh, bye, Metamorpho. I hope you're okay.
That's 100% one of in a Marvel movie. The credits would end with it saying "Metamorpho will return."
But Superman's still weak though. He is hurt from the kryptonite. So Lois takes the T-ship with Superman and flies him to Smallville and to the farm.
Yeah, Mr. Terrific stays back because they've established numerous times at this point how absolutely bananas dangerous it is that Lex Luthor has a pocket dimension, and every time he uses it, he risks destroying the entire world.
That sounds like Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is where we get to meet the Kents, where we get to see them kind of care about Clark. This is also the point where Tessmacher turns out to be mutant feet. We see Jimmy meet her in an alleyway where she's like, "Oh, if we take down Lex, we can be together, Jimmy."
She is so into Jimmy, and it feels like she just has kind of an obsessive personality overall. But like, I appreciate both sides of the acting here because it takes a hell of an actress to be that attractive and immediately give off the vibes of like, oh no, I still would want nothing to do with you because you're at that level of crazy. But then also on Jimmy's side of things where he can say like, yeah, no, you are too crazy for me. I don't want any part of this.
Yeah, and then she calls him from Lex's headquarters, and she gets caught ultimately and is put in one of the cells in the pocket dimension. But she's like, "Hey, Jimmy, I've got evidence that'll help you take down Lex." And Jimmy is ecstatic about this, but she like sort of pauses and hesitates and is like, "Hey, Jimmy, if I send this, you have to promise we're going to spend the weekend together." And he's like, "The whole weekend?" I'm like, Jimmy.
No, he initially hesitates. He's like, yeah, sure, I guess that's fine. How long at the weekend? She's like, well, the whole weekend. He's like, the whole weekend.
Yeah. So basically, they decided to do a payoff here where her selfies that she's been taking constantly is actually her being very smart because she's like collecting evidence in the background of the map where Luthor's going to get part of this country. She's getting like contracts in the background so that like all these photos build a picture of what Lex has been up to and is actual evidence to like take him down.
I really appreciate it. My first go around, because she's thrown into the prison, I thought she was caught. I thought that Lex Luthor realized like, oh, you've sold me out here. You've done horrible things. You're gone with you. It isn't until the rewatch that I realized that she's literally only put in prison for sending sexy selfies behind Lex Luthor's back.
Yes.
He has no idea that anyone else knows about all the plans at this point.
He got outwitted by what he thought was his bimbo girlfriend. Like she completely helped take him down. So no, I like really smart. And also Lex is super petty. When he finds out Superman's like escaped, he's just like throwing pens on the floor and demanding his henchmen pick them up.
He smashes a cup full of pens on the floor. He yells at them to pick it up. They immediately, like within 15 seconds, they've got another mug. They put it all in. They set it on the desk next to him. And as he's talking, he just brushes it back off the desk again for them to pick up again. He's such an ass.
Yep. So Superman wakes up. Lois has flown back to Metropolis by this point, and he is, he's in a bit of a bad place. He feels kind of, aimless because of the whole message from the parents thing. And this is when Jonathan Kent comes out to talk to him, and they have a heart-to-heart where he basically says a bunch of things you'd expect him to say, like, hey, parents don't decide who their kids are. They just give them the tools to make their own choices, to make their own mistakes, to mess up, and, your actions decide who you are. Part of my favourite line, though, that he says to him is, like, right at the start of it, where when Superman brings up how he feels about this message, he's like, what you wanted that message to say says a lot more about you than anything in the message does. And I really like that line.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, okay, so I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here that I might be wrong, but as this scene is wrapping up, is this one of your tearing up moments?
It is. It's one of two in quick succession.
Yep. I was getting the same. I left that movie and I'm recounting certain moments with my fiance, and I literally said to her, if the first like 2 chapters of this DC universe cause any harm to befall this man, I will riot. This man is so pure. And like he's called, it's a character trait, because even Martha's calling him. I was like, oh, you big mush. You're so mushy when it comes to Clark and all the stuff he's doing.
Yeah, and then the other tier moment, frankly, like a minute later, is the raising of the flag. It hits so hard because it's like Superman's at a low point. This is, the end of Act 2. We're about to go into Act 3. He's a little bit aimless, like we said. Yeah, obviously Jonathan Kent's just giving him a pep talk and he feels better, but he's felt like, oh, maybe the world hates me now. Like, are things the same? Like, what do I want to do? What do I believe in? What do I do? And we get footage on the news of these kids who have made a Superman flag, who are raising it in the area right at the border, but just before the military's going to storm in, and the main theme's playing, and it's just like this look in Superman's face where he's like, nothing else matters. I've got a purpose. I need to go help these kids. Like, this is it.
Yeah,
like, I'm going to go do this.
And it cuts around to like all the other people he's touched up to this point. Like, we see Guy Gardner's reaction. We see Metamorpho's reaction. We see his girlfriend, Sapphire Stagg, is there as well. Not named, but clearly her.
Well, we assume it's Sapphire. We don't know for sure, but...
Yeah. She's credited as such.
Oh,
so...
is she? Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the Justice Gang are funded by Stagg Industries. They do mention that when they first show up.
Yeah.
Was it not?
Maybe. I heard Lord. I heard Maxwell Lord.
Maybe it was Lord. Okay, I definitely heard a name that I recognized and went, aha.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The building that they go into.
Yes, they go into Stagg building. Yes, that's right. You're right.
Stagg Industries. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate that scene. It wasn't a tearing up moment for me. I do have another tearing up moment almost immediately after this, but this one was more of a goosebump scene for me. This one I was just like, it's happening.
It's this idea of like, like Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl both decide not to go help Superman. Mm-hmm. So you see Hawkgirl coming out of the shower and like seeing this on the news and sort of like being inspired that people are still like praying for Superman. I don't know. It just, all of it comes together. The main theme playing is they raise the flag. It's like, it's the call to action. It's like, Batman gets this a lot because Batman has the signal, and the idea of like, having the big burning bat symbol or something is like a big deal in Batman lore. Superman doesn't tend to have that moment because he doesn't have that thing, but this flag absolutely nailed that call to action getting into Act 3. Very good stuff.
And from there, he goes to get ready, but Mr. Terrific's T-Sphere shows up and says, hey, remember that dimensional portal thing? Turns out Lex Luthor got so pissed off that you escaped that he opened up a tear that's now threatening to eat all of Metropolis. And I kind of need you here, buddy.
Yeah, the world's going to end if you don't come to Metropolis, so you kind of need to come here instead. So that sets the whole thing up, and we kind of play out that for the most part. Because we don't actually really know what he decides necessarily until he shows up and like say, because the rip is going through the ocean, it gets to the city's evacuating. Lois and the Daily Planet gang, who have figured out all Lex Luthor's shit from the photos, have got into Mr. Terrific's ship, and Lois is piloting that bad boy, so that's going on.
I love that sequence because everyone else in the Daily Planet, they're hearing the evacuation, they're all running, they're all panicking, but Lois, Jimmy, and Perry are just calmly going over this conspiracy with Lex Luthor and Baravia. And it's this, again, this sort of soft-spoken implication of course Superman will save us. Like, we don't have to worry about anything. Like, we're fine. Everything will be okay. We can just sit here and talk for a while. Jimmy's literally holding a coffee as they're just like, yeah, no, this is all happening right now.
Yeah, so this rip is going through the ocean. It's getting to the city. And the building that it splits in half, like, half of it starts to topple. So you get these buildings sort of going like dominoes. And when it gets to the end, this one's about to hit the bridge where people are evacuating, and most of the cars speed off and get away out of time. But this one woman's car, like, doesn't quite get going. And she's still there. She's stuck. And this building's going to just flat, like completely horizontal, just land on top of her. And then it just doesn't. And the camera spins round and you see Superman holding the damn thing up. She obviously gets the car going, she drives out, and when she turns and looks behind her, you just see the cloud of rubble and smoke, and rising out of it is the silhouette of Superman. It's like, it's the money shot.
Music swelling.
Oh,
at
yes.
the new leitmotif, those two notes, that was the moment. That was the moment. As soon as that happened, I'm like, they got Superman right. It's so good. I love it.
Yeah, no, perfect entrance. And immediately, because Lex was expecting him to show up, they want him to show up here because they want the whole Bavaria thing to happen. So Lex is like, hey, Ultraman, engineer, go get him. So this is where we get all the big fighting with them. And we stick with that for a little bit.
Yeah, Mr. Terrific's pretty much immediately knocked out. And then we get a little bit more of a fight scene between Ultraman, but the main pivot point is that Engineer uses her nanobots to flood Superman's respiratory system. It's like swirls around his eyes. He's not able to see or anything like that.
I would like to just point out one thing before that happens, though, is that Superman does legit try to speak to her and says, hey, you don't have to follow Lex's orders. It's not too late for you. You can turn over and you leave. He tries to like talk her down. Like, it's very Superman. So, you know, credit there. But yeah, he gets completely covered. His face gets completely covered in nanobots. And his way out of it ultimately is to fly up as high as he can and then just fly straight down as fast as he can before he suffocates. And basically what that does is it knocks out the engineer and he's able to just sort of pull the nanobots out because she's not controlling them anymore.
I really like that moment because you can tell they don't know what Superman's doing. They're like, what is he? He's not flying fast enough or whatever for like friction to knock off the nanobots, and it's inside the system anyway, so it wouldn't matter. And it's only at the last moment that Lex realizes all of the orders he's been giving up to this point was completely encase Superman in the nanobots, completely cover him, so that when he starts plummeting down the Earth at Mach speeds, he's now the only one who's shielded. And so it knocks out Engineer because of the impact.
Yeah, good stuff. Some of this fight takes place in the baseball stadium, which is the Metropolis Meteors. And speaking of references, Jitter's Coffee is mentioned at one point, and we see a billboard for Big Belly Burger. So those are DC staples, just for anyone who's unaware.
There's also, as far as I saw, there's at least like every single street corner is some famous writer. Like when Superman turns himself in, it's on Wade Street.
That's a comic book thing. It's the same in Gotham. Like all these Batman writers and artists are like the names of every single street you can possibly think of.
Absolutely.
So so she's out of the fight. So it's now down to Superman and Ultraman. Ultraman's mask is damaged. He pulls it off, and we see that it's a clone of Superman. And Lex starts speaking through a speaker that's on his chest, and he's like, yes, Superman, I cloned you, the silly bitch. I got your DNA, I got a hair from one of your previous fights, and I made a clone, but he's even dumber than you are. So they start calling out all these moves, and we get a fight playing out. But the big thing here, though, from a narrative perspective, is during the fight, they're playing out, they end up getting into like a convention center type sort of setting, where Superman is talking to Lex, and he's kind of like under the assumption is like, hey, this whole thing to keep me away from Bavaria will not work. I called in favors, and that's kind of what, or I called in friends, and that's when it cuts to, you know, the kids get the flag up. There's a soldier aiming his gun at him, and that's when he gets encased in green. Guy Gardner's there, Hot Girl's there, and Metamorpho's there as well, which is cool. So we get Metamorpho making a big hammer to like smash a tank. Guys like flipping over tanks with middle finger constructs. It's the whole thing.
How can you not like Guy Gardner after that? It's a great moment for him.
And then Hot Girl goes after the president, and screeches like properly, like it does like a war cry.
Yeah, I never in comics, and this is just a comics thing, I never considered her as screeching like a hawk. I considered her flying. I considered her like yelling as she hits things, but never actually screeching like a hawk.
I kind of liked it. They added a bit of character.
No, it's fine for this character. It's just something I never really considered before.
But she grabs the president, and she has him like above like the city, or his capital presumably of Bavaria, and he's like, "I know you will not kill me because you are like Superman." And she just goes, "I'm not like Superman," and drops him to his death. Which I'm like, okay, you've separated her from Superman very easily. They're very good.
Oh yeah, they do a great match cut shot, which is she drops him, and as he's about to hit the ground, we get Steve Lombard in the T-ship dropping Alka-Seltzer into a glass that starts fizzing up. So it does a good match shot there.
Yeah.
One thing I really like during that sequence, though, where it's him telling Lex, like, oh, hey, I've called in friends, I got some help or whatever, is when we do cut back over to the next sequence, Lex basically is just like, I don't care. None of that was the priority. And immediately in my head, I'm like, yes, thank you. It's not real estate Lex. We're going with other Lex. We're going with xenophobic Lex.
Yeah, the whole thing here is like, I didn't do all that. I'm not killing you so that this invasion can go through. I engineered this invasion so that I would have an excuse in the eyes of the government to kill you and get away with it. Like, that's what this has all been about. The fact that I was going to get half of a country named after me was just like a little bit of an icing on a cake. That's not what the purpose of this is. So I really appreciated that. I love that they got the reference into him getting land as like a reference to the old movies, but they specifically make it a plot point to say that that's not what the real goal was. Like, it's about his hatred of Superman. And it's so refreshing to have that actually be what this Lex is that he hates Superman, and that's the main thing he cares about.
I think it's important because obviously, as you continue down the movies, Lex can hate Superman because Superman's always foiling his schemes. Like, he's got these schemes and the Superman's just a barrier in the way. I really appreciate the fact that this Lex hates Superman because he's Superman. It has nothing to do with him getting in Lex's way. It has nothing to do with anything like that. It is a deep-seated hatred and bigotry just from I think he said it in the beginning, where it's like, you show up, you don't do anything, you don't earn anything, and yet everyone loves you for it. Like, you haven't gone through what I've had to go through to scrape and nail all this out.
Yeah, I kind of read it because this is also part of during this fight where he admits that he knows that it's all about envy. But he also brings up that he gets annoyed when people compare him to like great people of the past because he thinks he's better than them. But at least they're human. At least they did something to earn their like reputation and why we remember them. Not like you. You just showed up. Yeah. So, it really hammers that home quite heavily throughout this whole thing.
And then during all this, he's fighting against who I'm just going to call Bizarro, Ultraman. He realizes during this point that he can't fight Ultraman on his own, and so he calls in Crypto for help. And Crypto's the one thing Lex Luthor didn't plan for.
Yeah, Crypto starts destroying all the drones that Lex has got flying around Ultraman, and that means that Superman can basically beat him fairly handedly. Not that he like has a ton of say, because he's still like equally strength and all that. So when the black hole that's opening because of the big rift that's going through the city sucks in Ultraman, it's not like Superman like wanted to send him there or like made a choice to banish him. It was just kind of like, no, like, I was fighting for my life and like I put him in this path of this bus that was flying, and like that's just where he had to go. And so it's kind of this unfortunate thing. But yeah, the theme's blaring through all this, and there's a great moment in the middle of it where he kind of stands in like a sort of heroic pose as the sun's beaming behind him, and you get like the sort of the classic Superman theme playing for just a bit. But my favorite part of all this though is what follows after, because the Raptor soldiers show up, and like Lex is like, hey, Raptors, like, like kill Superman. And Superman just says, yeah, good luck with that, and just flies up into the sky. They all kind of swarm him like they're like bugs like clinging onto someone, and Superman just tornadoes, so they all fly off of him, and then he just spins around with fire in his heat vision like super quick. And just to show that no one got killed, we get shots of like these like Raptor soldiers with these big like heat scorch marks across their armor, and they're all just like lying in pain, like yeah,
they're all groaning to make sure he's like still alive. Don't worry, guys.
Good stuff.
But no, I will, if we're talking criticism here, I will say that I think everything after he gets the nanobots out of him up until that point there, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of stakes for me. It doesn't feel like I actually expect Superman to lose it or like there to be any major consequence. I really like Lex Luthor's characterization and his monologues during this. I think that more than makes up for the lack of it. But I do think that kind of takes away from the impact of these fight scenes, where I don't feel like there is anything that's really going to be lost here. I
think that's the important part, though, is the characterization and the conversation that's going on. Also, earlier on, when he thought Superman was dying from the nanobots, there's like that shot of Lex smiling, and he just looks delighted with himself. It's a really good little moment. But I think this comes from the other stuff's the more important stuff, which is the Lex side of it. But also just from the fact that Ultraman himself is not that much of a character. So it's hard to get invested in the actual fist fight because it's not like we care about him himself. So I think that's the knock-on effect of that, is what I think what you're feeling.
I think what I was really looking for, because they kind of hinted at it for just a second, right after all the fight scenes and before we shut up the rift, is they say, okay, we evacuated Metropolis, that's all taken care of, but the rift is now moving on to the next city. And I love Lex's moment where one of his goons, one of his tech guys is like, okay, we have to close up the rift now. Like, Superman beat us, we're all done now, we gotta close it up.
Just to make this clear, Lex can literally just stop this rift by putting in a number anytime he wants, and he's just choosing not to. And he gets so
beforehand, it was because Superman hadn't shown up yet. He's like, we got to keep Superman here.
But he gets so spiteful here that as the rift is going towards where a lot of the Metropolitans have evacuated to, he basically says, no, they chose Superman, let the rift keep going, and maybe when it starts to hit a city that I care about, we'll turn it off.
Like, such a good moment. But I think that's kind of what I was missing throughout this fight scene. Even if I don't think Superman's going to be killed here, even if I don't think something bad's going to like happen to him, I think a ticking clock. I think having something of like, this has to be done before this happens. And the only time we get reference to this city about to get hit is after all the rest of the fight scene happening. It doesn't feel like it's something that's on the verge of happening right then.
Yeah. So basically Mr. Terrific's like, hey, let's go finish this Lex bullshit, shall we? And Lex, realizing that the jig is up, he tries to run to his portal to his pocket dimension, like he's trying to get away with it, and Superman just flies in the window and knocks him to the side and like, nope, sorry, access denied, you're answering for what you've done here. Mr. Terrific goes and shuts the rift off, he knows what he's doing, so he goes and does that. Yep. And
this is also where Superman gives his full like speech of like, this is why I do what I do. You are completely wrong about me as a person, Lex.
Yeah, he basically gives the I'm a human being speech, and that's my greatest strength, and maybe one day, hopefully, you'll realize it's your greatest strength too, although, you know, we're not holding our breath. And Lex is like, oh, you patronizing son of a bitch. And as he's saying this, Crypto swoops in and starts ragdolling him. And this is basically the Hulk Loki moment from Avengers, where you just have the superpowered, like, you know, quote unquote dumber character just unleashing on the asshole villain. And it's just so good because Superman wouldn't do this. This would be cruel for him to do it. But Crypto's a dumb dog. He can get away with this. So you get a little catharsis of Lex being just hurt a little bit.
Yeah. And the whole time, Superman's like, Crypto, stop. But Crypto's not listening. He's not a dog that cares at all about his owner's commands.
So the big thing here is that this is when, you know, we've seen like some glimpses of the Daily Planet crew, like getting the article ready and whatever. But here at the end, whilst they're having this confrontation, it comes on the news. Oh, Daily Planet have exposed Lex Luthor. He was secretly behind a lot of this stuff. He was going to get half of a country. He's been engineering the opinion on Superman to make him look like this, and this. And there's a great moment here where Lex has a tear go down his face because he realizes that the world's going to hate him now in a way that he wanted them to hate Superman. It's just a great little moment where
it's just absolutely backfired 100% of the way. This is also where we get our blink and you'll miss it. Maxwell Lord, played by Sean Gunn.
That's right. Yes, Maxwell Lord. Yep. I guess a brief appearance in the news where he calls Lex an asshole. I love that idea of Lex hating the fact that the world's going to hate him now, because that's the one thing he doesn't want. He wants to be adored and loved as the hero of the world. Yeah. So, like, that stuff's great. Obviously, we see all the people that were in the pocket dimension sort of get returned back to the city. They're hugging. Eve like jumps on Jimmy and is like, "We can be together now forever." And Jimmy's like, okay.
I could be wrong. On the first viewing, I got the thing where he was like, I am going to shake this as soon as I can. But on the second viewing, I feel like he was like, all right, I mean, why not? You did sacrifice quite a bit. Like, we can give it a shot.
I think he's like, I'll give her a month. She's earned a month out of me. Before
I can at least spend the whole weekend with her. Fair.
Yeah, so I do appreciate that Lois and the Daily Planet crew were like the ones who were ultimately going to prove that Lex was behind everything to the world, because that's a big part of the perception of like what the plot is. So I like that that's independent. I like that Superman had no idea that was even going on. He was just doing the Superman stuff. So he was
doing this without the expectation that it's going to repair his image. He's no, I'm just doing it because it's right.
There's that. Yeah, that's a good point. But just this idea that both sides of that are very important to what's going on, and that Lois and crew are also doing really important things. It's not just about what Superman's up to. So I like that. I like that a lot. So we have Superman and Lois be like, "Hey, Miss Lane, I should give you an interview so you could learn about all the behind the scenes things that happened here.
Let's go into that abandoned mall over there and have ourselves an interview."
They smooch. She says, "I love you." And after the music swells, it cuts back outside, and Perry turns to Jimmy and says, "So how long have they two been hooking up?" And he's like, "About 3 months, I think."
So after I watched the first time, I tried to just mentally make a note of that intro, the text on it, of like 3 centuries ago, 3 decades ago, and it just keeps working down through the times. But when I hit 3 months, I was like, I can't think of what the text said for 3 months. Like, I don't remember what it said. This time around, I was paying attention to it. It didn't say anything. But it turns out 3 months ago was when Superman and Lois started hooking up.
Yeah, why didn't they put that in the text at the start? 3 months ago, Superman started dating for the first time.
Yeah. Hey, you don't know. There might have been a Lana in this universe.
That's true. There could have been a Lana. That's a fair point. So also the aftermath of the Bavaria stuff. Great little joke here where everyone's cheering, guys loving the adoration. And Hot Girl turns and says, "Hey, Metamorpho did a good job. Maybe we should have him on the team." And Guy's like, no, come on, look at that face. You really want him representing us? And Metamorpho hears the name Justice Gang and goes, "Justice Gang? That's a cool name." And Guy just looks at him and goes, "You're in." That's a funny bit.
Yeah. No, it's great. It just shows exactly what kind of character Guy is and allows us to set this team up moving forward.
Yeah, Lex gets carted off to Belle Reve. The name drop Belle Reve. So
yes,
that's another DC thing just to throw in there. Yeah, I mean, I think the surprising thing about the ending to me and the Fortress is that some of it wasn't the mid-credit scene. Like, I really would have expected the Supergirl cameo to be like the mid-credit sequence.
Yeah.
But they put it at the end. I guess they wanted to make sure everyone saw it. They wanted to tee people up for Supergirl next year. So, and they do set up the story that they're adapting, because they're adapting Tom King's Supergirl Women of Tomorrow, and they straight up say she gets drunk on other planets where there's no yellow sun. So, and that's how that book starts.
I guess I get it. I understand of like saying that like that's where she's been, maybe like that's what they're saying at that point, or that she's going off to do that again. I just don't know how I feel about the fact of like we are just literally telling you what the plot of the next movie is, assuming that they do adapt that book pretty directly. Like that is the plot of the next movie up until the inciting incident happens.
Well, that's not the plot then. The plot is what the inciting incident.
You know what I mean. I don't know. It just felt weird to me that they actually like they just said like the opening chapter of that book. They're just like, yeah, and that's just like what we're doing there. It's not a bad thing. I'm not saying I hated it, but it was just weird to me that they threw it in there.
I don't think it's weird. I mean, I think it's unexpected for most people. I don't think people expect Supergirl to be like this drunk character who stumbles in, but it sets up a character that has to grow, that has to come of age, and the story of that they're going to adapt like is very much her like maturing and looking after someone else. So because the reveal here at the end, of course, is that Krypto is her dog, and the reason why Krypto's so badly behaved is because she has not put down boundaries for Krypto. Yes. She plays with them rough, and
she is absolutely fine with Krypto just like pile driving her into the ground with his pouncing, just like absolutely destroying her.
Yeah. So the final beat of the movie, barring the mid post-credit scenes, is Superman's on the table, the robots are attending to him, and they're like, "Hey, shall we play the footage of your parents because it soothes you?" And the reveal here is that he's watching home movies from Earth. He's watching the Kents and memories from childhood as the punk rocker song plays, which leads us into the credits, which again, not exactly the classic credits, but definitely inspired by the classic credits. So
Absolutely. And then just to really quick sum up the other credit scenes, mid credits is just basically a shot of Superman and Krypto on the moon looking at the Earth.
it's
Last,
basically
like, 3 seconds.
it's practically a still photograph. Like, it
Yes.
doesn't even do anything.
Yep. And then end credit scene is just a little humorous bit where Mr. Terrific and Superman are inspecting where the rift closed back up again. And there's a building that's like ever so slightly misaligned. And Superman just kind of like, well, I mean, could we have done this better? And Mr. Terrific is like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry my work isn't good enough for you. And he just kind of like storms off frustrated. And Superman's like, ah, man, I'm a jerk.
A gosh darn jerk sometimes,
Yes,
I believe
gosh
was the
darn
line.
jerk sometimes. Yep.
Yes, so no, that was a fun little bit. I do think the Supergirl scene would have been an exciting mid-credit scene, but I get that they want to make sure people are teed up for the next movie, and
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's it.
I think it could have gone mid credits, but honestly, I liked it where I like the idea of not hiding plot relevant stuff or universe relevant stuff in the credits. Like, if you want to do a funny little bit, if you want to do the Avenger shawarma scene, go for it. But like the idea that you have to stick around in order to understand something about the universe, that shouldn't be done anymore. I think that's played its part. We need to get rid of it.
Sure. Yeah. There's also one little moment towards the end where it shows that the government folk are like in this kind of weird place where, like, hey, the metahumans are running things now because now they're the heroes to everyone. Like, everyone's going to be loving Superman again. Everyone's going to be loving the Justice Gang. So they kind of
it's implied. It's implied that Rick Flag is like kind of more okay with the metahumans, probably because of Creature Commandos, where like he had to spend a lot of time with them. But he's more okay with it. Where the other one's like, nah, this is humans have lost. Metahumans are what it is now.
Yeah, but it leaves us off in a place where, like, okay, we understand where this universe is now, and we have this sort of sense of context for a lot of the stuff going on. And, you know, like, it did its job in the sense that I'm excited about the next projects. I'm excited about Lanterns, the TV show, early next year, which they've flat out said the mystery that Hal and John are investigating in that show is leading into what the main plot of the DC universe is for, like, the next phase or whatever. So,
I mean, I'm happy for it. I'm happy it's all stuff that matters, because that's the other part of it is like,
yes,
I don't want it to be a thing where it feels like there's A tier and B tier content. Like, if something is just a pointless little excursion and doesn't really have anything to say, then I'd rather it just be something that is kind of implied in later movies rather than something that's dedicated an entire movie release to, you know?
I mean, I think there is A and B tier content. Like, I mean, maybe it'll be great, but I don't know if I see Peacemaker Season 2 feeling like the most essential thing ever, but that's coming soon.
All right, let me rephrase. It doesn't feel like there's anything besides A tier and contractually obligated this has to happen because we're already doing it.
So yeah, in terms of like the next big proper steps, we got Lanterns early 2026.
Yes.
A year from now, we have Supergirl, which is obviously set up at the end of this movie. And for Halloween season next year, we have Clayface, which they're just about to start shooting.
That's look, I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm sure like the timeline will match up or whatever, but like it is crazy to me that there's a Clayface movie prior to actually getting a Batman in this universe.
It's kind of nuts, but I think if like they're just doing a horror movie, like a body horror movie about Clayface, like that's an interesting, weird project. Like, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I don't know, but like it's interesting if nothing else.
Yeah. And then still on the to be announced stuff is The Authority, which obviously, as I mentioned before, the Wildstorm stuff from before.
I was just mentioning the stuff that's like basically already shot. They've already got dates or like windows for next year. Like, this is the next like few things we're getting. Obviously, I mean, they must be happy with Supergirl because they hired the same writer to do a Teen Titans movie, and they just hired her to do the Wonder Woman movie. So, like, they're going steam ahead on that stuff, which is cool. What's interesting is that James Gunn's been doing interviews and stuff, right? And a few people have said to him, well, okay, you've got this other stuff coming, but like, what are you directing next? And like, is it Superman 2? Are we getting a Superman 2 soon? You know, how long are we waiting for something like that? And he kind of coyly said on social media, well, define Superman 2, which immediately made a lot of people worry. It's like, wait, don't tell me we're doing like Batman Superman for the second movie. Like let's not repeat sins of the past. He confirmed it's not that. It's not a world's finest movie in any shape or form, but there's just this kind of sly. It's not exactly just Superman 2, but Superman's important in it, and he also said it wouldn't be that long till we find out what it is. So the running theories, I think, right now, is that after Supergirl, there might be like a Brainiac movie or something where it's both Superman and Supergirl or something, and that'll be like a James Gunn movie. That sounds cool to me if that's what it is, but it sounds like it won't just be Superman, whatever it is, whatever James Gunn's directing next. But he knows what it is, and apparently we're going to find out soonish.
I mean, James Gunn definitely likes his ensemble films. That's for sure.
That's true.
He's good at bringing in a bunch of different characters, making sure they have their time, and making it all work out. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look more into specifically what he said, but I feel like if you say Superman is important to whatever it is that's going on, I feel like it does need to be a larger hero that he's maybe just partnering up with, that it's kind of like, I know you said it's not a world's finest, but that just tells me it's not going to be a Batman.
Sure.
You know, I feel like Superman would be appearing in maybe like whatever Wonder Woman is, or maybe something like that. But I don't know. Yeah, it's too early to tell. Obviously, this universe can take any number of directions. We don't, if we're speculating wildly here, I don't think that we have any inkling as to what the gist, the forward momentum of what the overall chapter 1 plot line is going to be. I don't think that there's anything outside of, and this is my theory, it's going to be a weird kind of pivot, but kind of what ended up in the comics being the Superman theory. This idea of all these metahumans and going up against, like, they're kind of taking charge, taking control. They're making decisions now unilaterally. How do normal people deal with that?
I don't know.
But I simultaneously don't think of that, because that's very close to what Batman v Superman was as a plot, and I don't think they want to go back to that easily.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it was interesting watching Gunn answer these questions, because he had kind of a smirk on his face. It didn't seem like he was worried about disappointing people who wanted more Superman, but it isn't just as simple as Superman 2, which makes me think that it's still Superman leaning and Superman focus, but it's not just going to be, which is why I think people are thinking, oh, it's just going to be like it'll be a Superman movie, but it's going to be like co-led by Supergirl or something like that.
Yeah.
It kind of depends when it comes, but it's like, with this movie we're talking about hit before we even get a Wonder Woman movie, so I would be surprised. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be that surprised, but I would expect we'd get Wonder Woman's movie before we get like a team up Wonder Woman and Superman, or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing for this franchise, though, and I hope they kind of continue in this direction of not really doing origin films. I mean, to some people, it's necessary. You're going to have to do it. But I like to think that Gunn is going in with the idea that the audience either A, are comic fans who know these people and don't need a walkthrough, or B, that the general audience either remembers the DCEU or is savvy enough that they can pick stuff up. And so we're not going to get a whole bunch of clear-cut, here is the origin of this character. It's going to be a lot more of, the universe has existed, and we're kind of just dropping in with, here's what this character's doing now.
It's a tightrope to walk, because on the one hand, it could become messy if it feels like regular folk can't follow what's going on. So there's a really good script writing element here where you have to juggle the characters, get the important information across so that people can care about what's happening, care about who's in the story, but not overly explain everything. But the flip side to it that's good if you can pull it off is, one, the story pacing is so good because we're not stopping to slow down and like explain a bunch of stuff, and that was a big benefit in this movie. I think for people who don't already know a lot of these characters, the neat thing here is that it may actually encourage more of them to go and read a comic book, because they might go, hey, I want to know a bit more about Mr. Terrific. Oh, there's a Mr. Terrific Year 1 coming out right now. That seems perfect. I'll go read that and find out what his backstory is. Like,
yeah.
So,
I mean, that's obviously why they publish those books and time with the movie, to try to get it. They're trying to get that synergy. Personally, I don't think that the amount of people that are going to get moved over are very slim. It's a very, very slim margin.
Oh yeah, it's always going to be a minority, but like, I'm saying that this lends itself more to people having a curiosity because they're not overly explaining some of these side characters. So
Right.
So people who do really care and really like fall in love with a character or two might actually be encouraged to go and read more, even if it's just Googling them and just going down a wiki hole of reading about who someone is.
But that's what I think is beneficial here. We exist in an age where that can happen. So like for Metamorpho, for instance, this movie doesn't tell you who Metamorpho is. It doesn't use his name. It just says, here's Rex, here's what his power, the Element Man is used as a thing. But it allows the audience, if they're interested in that, to go home, do more research, find the Wikipedia articles, and read up on this character, find out more about them on their own. I don't think there's any point where in Lanterns we're going to have Hal Jordan get the ring. I think it's automatically going to be set like, he's been a Green Lantern for 5 years already. He's been a Green Lantern for a while. And this is just an adventure that they're on. I think that if the universe David, follows that idea...
The guy they cast as Hal Jordan is like 55, so yeah, I think he's been a Lantern for a while in the story of the show.
Yeah, fair enough. But like that's the sort of thing where I feel like Gunn can lean into the idea that people are... there. As soon as a movie has a cast list announced, there are going to be 6 YouTube videos explaining each and every one of the characters and their origins. People who are curious about this stuff are going to be able to find it out. And so we don't have to take that real estate up in the movie to show how did we get this character to the point where they are now.
Yeah, within reason though. And I want to make that clear. There is a fine line here. There's a tightrope act in writing the script where you have to still give people enough to give a shit. And that's why this movie's kind of impressive, because I think it gives you enough of all these supporting characters to care about them in the context of the movie. And it's hard for me to look at it from an objective point of view because like I just know them all already. But you know, I'm seeing people online saying I didn't know who Mr. Terrific was, but I think he's great. Or you know, Guy Gardner was great, or you know, whoever. Like there's people who are having these reactions who clearly don't know who a lot of these characters are. And that's kind of the important part. And what's good is that if they're nailing the characterizations, if they're nailing the personalities, and they are pretty across the board here, then it translates really well to anyone who does go and check out more of those characters, because they're going to, you know, they'll go read Guy Gardner and go like, oh yeah, he's just as much of an asshole in this as he was in the movie. Yeah. It's going to sync up. So yeah. There's like an art to that, but that's like almost like a separate thing because it's a comic book adaptation versus like just how it works on its own as a movie. And as a movie, not bogging itself down and all this stuff gives it like a very relentless pacing. And if anything, like I probably could have used 10 extra minutes. Not necessarily because I thought anything needed to breathe, but I just enjoyed being around the characters so much that, you know what, going up to 2 hours 20 would have been fine. if they really wanted to add an extra 10 minutes, I'd have been okay with it.
Oh, absolutely. Give me a bit more Clark at the Daily Planet. Give me a bit more Smallville. Give me more time with Ma and Pa. Like both those things would have been perfectly fine, extra characterization without bogging anything down. And honestly, I probably could have used a little bit more of Hawkgirl. I feel like out of all the characters, she's the one who was given the least to do.
She's given the least. I think her big moment where she kills the Bavarian president is good. You know, I like the actress. I think Isabela Merced is solid. I was excited to see her in this because she was good in Last of Us. But that's the good thing about this, though, is that it feels like, oh, we'll get more of all these characters, whether it's in the next Superman or they all pop up in some other DC movie, because they might. Who's to say they?
No, yeah.
You know,
that's the one thing that I kind of do like, at least right now with the way it's looking with Creature Commandos. This is that Gunn, because he set up this idea that it's been 300 years since Metahuman showed up, we can play fast and loose with the timeline a little bit. It isn't this thing where, you know, everything is happening now. Everything is happening at this current point as we're releasing the films in chronological order. We can dive back just a little bit. We can explore different time periods.
Although I just thought of something actually that I did think about during the movie a little bit. Hawkgirl, is she Thanagarian? Is she a reincarnated Egyptian character? We have no idea.
So that's kind of the point where I was getting at, where James Gunn, I saw an interview that he did, really made a point with the concept of metahumans and how that's something that we will be moving forward with a little bit. But if you really look at the people in this movie, nobody's a metahuman as we would typically define it. Hawkgirl, probably, possibly alien to some extent.
I would say engineer is a metahuman.
Possibly. She may be. It's also, technology. She has nanobots and stuff like that. It's not inherently something that she's born with.
Yeah, but Flash is a metahuman. He wasn't born with these speed powers.
Yeah, but but his thing is he was given the powers. It's part of him now. Her thing is nanotechnology.
Okay, sure.
It can theoretically be removed from her.
I mean, the fact that they refer to Superman as a metahuman clearly indicates that it's just a catch-all term in this universe for any human-looking person with powers.
Right. And that's what James Gunn was kind of pointing to in that interview I saw, where it's like that definition, like Superman not being a metahuman, but like other people are, and like technically he's considered a metahuman even though he's an alien. I think that line, that delineation of what counts as a metahuman and not, is something that might be focused on in future entries, especially as you get things like Batman, who is absolutely just a normal human, but like has to deal with metahuman villains. So maybe there's a different way that he's viewed at in that lens.
Yeah. Honestly, Batman's like the one thing I'm worried about in this universe, because Andy Muschietti's the one who's supposed to be doing the movie, and I don't think he's a good director.
Not a fan?
No,
fair enough.
But yeah,
I'm not sure what he's done.
Well, The Flash, I'm pretty sure
that was
one.
Oh no, fair enough.
Also, the It movies, which I don't think are very well directed. He's not good.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got time.
we got time. We got time to fix that shit. Yeah, I kind of loved the movie. I mean, to kind of start to get us towards wrapping up here in this long trek. Right. It nails the hope and optimism of Superman. He has a character arc, and I think in that sense, I think it's arguably the best Superman movie, because even more so than the Christopher Reeve movies, even though there's definitely things in them that are better. If you're doing like category for category and you're comparing them, there's things in those movies that are better. But this Superman has a journey that he goes through. He has things that he learns that feel like they pay off really well at the end. There's rich themes. It's got something to say about the world that we live in today and how Superman fits into it. It's got all the world building. It's built a universe, and in one movie it already feels kind of rich with all the possibilities that we could do and we could go with. It's nailing all this stuff, and then that's on top of like music being great, all the casting being pretty good across the board, the characters all being characters that I want to see again. Like it feels like a pretty unmitigated success, barring one or two little negative points that you can say, oh yeah, okay, maybe this one henchman character was a bit underdeveloped, or whatever.
No, I love the movie. I love it like pretty much top to bottom. I can't think of anything that I would fundamentally change. I can't think of anything that, like, even watching it through twice, that where like I was trying to go in more analytically of like, okay, does this pay off as well? Is this something that like really works here? And again, I have my issues with how the third act fight scene works in terms of stakes, but honest to God, like every review I've seen, even ones that are giving it a negative review, come out of it saying it was a good, fun time. And I that's just something that I feel like is so quintessential towards what Superman is, that missing that would have been devastating, but having nailed it as hard as they did, it feels like it bumps the movie up even more.
Yeah, I've been waiting a long time for a good Superman movie, and it did things that I didn't even know I wanted from a Superman movie. This idea of it feeling like a Saturday morning cartoon where we can just have the Hammer of Bavaria and his silly outfit at the start flying around doing shit, or Anti-Proton Rivers and like Metamorpho using his weird power set. Like it just keeps doing interesting things, and it's not ashamed of being a comic book movie. It's not ashamed of where it comes from. And even like other successful comic book movies still kind of feel sometimes like, like I wouldn't say the MCU is ashamed of coming from comic books, but
no.
Compared to this, it kind of is. Like I don't think anything in the MCU feels as comic booky as this movie felt.
Yeah, that's fair. It does. I mean, obviously, I know you don't have an interest in it. It does feel like we are starting to lean that direction with Fantastic Four. It does feel like probably taking hints from Superman coming out, or maybe it's just a general vibe going on in Hollywood of like, maybe we can fully depart ourselves from the Bryan Singer, everyone wears black jumpsuits era of superhero movies. Maybe we can make it so that we can just fully lean into how stupid and silly all this is, because people seem to like that.
Yeah. But not in a mocking way, not in like a, hey, this is silly, right? It's like, no, it's very earnest. It's very much taking itself seriously. It's saying some pretty big things, even if it is doing a bunch of silly comic book stuff. It really feels like it embraces what it is, as well as having something to actually say. And, it's... Yeah.
I think I was a little bit hesitant with Mr. Terrific's character, because I kept expecting him to be the character who would do the, yeah, that just happened sort of line, where like, because he's the straight man, it's just the sort of thing of all the goofy stuff happening. He'd have to be the one that points out to the audience, but no, he isn't. That's not his character. And honestly, we don't get one of those characters in this movie. It's all played as reasonable and as real as a comic book movie should be.
All right, David, what would we rating Superman?
So I was bouncing around. I've had a lot of time to bounce around this, Pete. I've been thinking about it for a while now. And I think ultimately, especially after my second viewing, I'm coming out of this with a 9. I really, honestly, truly think that this movie is the best Superman movie since the first one. And depending, arguably, on certain aspects of it, I think it surpasses the first one in some aspects. So I cannot fault it beneath that point. The only thing that's holding it back for me is, again, a bit with the third act and a little bit of hesitance towards the James Gunn-isms at certain points. But honestly, most of that just slid right off my back. I think it nailed the humor where it really tried to lay it in. So 9 straight for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's absolutely aspects that are better than the original Superman movie. It's got a better plot, for one.
True.
I like the personification of Lex better. There's a bunch of things, but there's absolutely things that original movie also does better than this, namely just how beautiful it is. And as far as the music goes, I think you'd be as good as you think this is. Like, it's hard to say that John Williams' score for the original Superman isn't the better of the two, because it just is special and all the rest of it. Yeah, I've been wrestling with the score a little bit. And I've had almost 2 weeks to think about it at this point. Because part of me is hesitant to give it the 9. Just purely because, like, is it, like the rush of excitement because it's like, a good DC movie and I'm just so happy to have one of those. Like, am I going above and beyond because of that? Am I, like is there an argument that, like it nails a lot of things, but like, does it all come together as perfectly as like the tightest script or the tightest movie does? So I've really been struggling between an 8.5 and a 9. Like, that's where I've been thinking for quite some time.
Can I inject a little bit to hopefully sway you?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be complicated, Pete. Go with what feels good. Go with what makes you feel good.
Oh, dear. Screw it. 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
9 out of 10. I love it.
All right.
We got one.
We did it. We personally contributed to this.
Cue Janine from Ghostbusters saying we got one, because we got one. Feels good. It feels good to have a good DC movie and be excited for the future. Now, can we get a second good DC movie? Now that's the trick. That's where things are going to get complicated. But
I mean, I don't know the director. I'm not familiar with the screenwriter, but I have heard that Tom King's been hanging around Hollywood as of late, and obviously he's the one who wrote that Supergirl story. So if that's the follow-up we get, fantastic.
This will be the real test. It's one thing for James Gunn to direct one of the movies when he's like overseeing the universe. It's another thing to see, okay, how does another movie do when he's not the one directing, but he's still there to kind of oversee it? How does that pan out?
And I think more specifically the idea of, okay, Superman represents all this hope and optimism stuff, and that's a good way to introduce the universe. What happens when you get a character who doesn't exactly align with that? Is a little bit more complicated of a character.
Well, we'll find out. So, all right. Well, that's Superman. It took 2 weeks to get to it finally, but we're here. We've done it. It was a long episode. Obviously, we had scheduled next for the Naked Gun. Naked Gun season is going to be starting, and because of when this eventually got done, Naked Gun season will be starting tomorrow. So look forward to that as we build up to the new Naked Gun movie in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes, if we say any time, dates, releases, or anything during the next season, ignore it.
Yes, things have changed a little bit because I was sick, but obviously the main thing I'll get across here, if you like the show, you want to support the various podcasts, the Collector's Cut, Atomic Cinema Experiment, or Sci-Fi Movie Podcast, or Screams After Midnight, you can do that via Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, or via YouTube membership. We do a monthly bad movie show called Extra Reels. There's some bonus Extra Reels stuff even coming out for free throughout August, but you can get access to that. You can get access to the bonus segments where we do ratings for like individual categories like video, audio, script, acting, all that kind of stuff. And we also have a sexual tension award that we put in there now. So there's some silliness as well. It's not all serious number business.
Wait, you think that's a silly category? I take it absolutely serious, Pete.
So you can get access to various other bonus things and support everything, help keep it all coming via Patreon or YouTube membership. Thank you to everyone who already supports us. But that's the show. That is Collector's Cut. So Naked Gun's coming next. And
wait, Pete, hold on. Just so we don't have to edit in later. We never said if this makes the cut.
Oh, well, yeah, it makes the cut. There you go.
Okay. Does it go cut above?
That's hard to say, right? It's just too fresh. It's too fresh.
Yeah.
I can't commit to that.
I'm going to say right now it just makes the cut. I feel like it's too early to say it truly is one of those all-time special ones. But theoretically, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I could look back and bump this up. But I think it just makes the cut for now.
Yep. All right. So, in a world where we had to sit through the bland, soulless Superman Returns and then the complete misunderstanding of Superman with the Zack Snyder stuff, this was a delight to behold. So let us know what you think of the Superman movie in the comments. Like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Helps out a bunch if you do. But that's the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.